Surprise! There is a divisional champ that nobody predicted nor expected. That and more as we head into the playoffs. This is Total Football Talk. Well, welcome to Total Football Talk. Hard-hitting grind news and fun just the way you like it. I'm one of the co-hosts of this program, Cole Johnson, a.k.a. the Mad Scientist and EP Extraordinaire. And I am joined, as always, by the other co-hosts of this program. I don't know, Mr. Commander's Grand Report, Mr. D. Will in the evening, the man who's in charge of the D. Willie Bucks, D. Willie, a.k.a. Drew Willingham. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, my man. Glad we are here for episode 19 to recap week 18 and talk about super wild card weekend coming up. So we got some things on our plate this morning.
Yes, we do. And let's get things started with the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Ready.
So the action started hot and heavy Saturday afternoon in M&T Bank Stadium as the Baltimore Ravens, who of course sewn the number one seed in the AFC, rested most of their starters against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team hungry for a playoff spot and berth. Well, it was a nasty day in Baltimore. Well, you pretty much know because you were not that far from Baltimore. But it was a nasty rainy day, and it was a decent hard-hitting game. The Steelers pulled it out 17-10, and they waited with bated breath to see if they would actually have a playoff spot. Najee Harris was the star of the show, 26 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. You can also add 5 receptions, 21 yards. Deontay Johnson, who had the 71-yard touchdown to seal things and basically provide the margin of score, 4 receptions and 89 yards in that touchdown. 8 thumbs himself, Mason Rudolph, a really good performance. 18-20, 152 yards, a touchdown. He did have a lost fumble. And the Steelers defense with T.J. Watt leading the way with 2 sacks. Hope that knee is well, my man. Giving them 19 on the year. Those 2 led to 4 sacks of the defense. And they also had 2 fumble recoveries. And Tyler Huntley in place of Lamar Jackson, 15-28. 146 yards and a touchdown. Your thoughts on the game that started week 18?
Well, this game right here, it was kind of boring going into halftime, as there wasn't much of a trade-off on the score. As something to expect when you have backup quarterbacks in leading the way for both teams. But gotta give it to Mason Rudolph for leading the charge as someone who was 18-20, only had 2 incompletions. 152 yards and a TD. He did have that lost fumble, like you said, but unfortunately for the Ravens, it didn't really matter too much. But it doesn't really matter for them anyway because they have the number 1 seed going into this playoff run with this first week off. So good on the Steelers for finding a way to claw their way into the playoffs here with a little bit of help, which we'll cover here in a little bit. But if you were watching this game, you didn't really get too excited about things till the second half.
Yeah, and actually that touchdown I mentioned of Deontay Johnson's, that was the first play of the fourth quarter. So, yeah, it was a next step up from Bowling Shoe Ugly, but it was not the greatest looking, aesthetically pleasing game. But it was a good game and a contested game nonetheless, and that means the Steelers sweep the Ravens. They see that really good luck in Baltimore for some reason. And now for the rest of the games that took place on Sunday, we'll touch on the other Saturday night game. We'll touch on the other Saturday game later. The other AFC North matchup is what we're focused on now. The Cleveland Browns playing out the string. They travel to Cincy, who also playing out the string. The Bengals, they beat the Browns 31-14 as the Browns rested many of their starters as well. Jake Browning, good outing for his last starting performance of 2023. 18-24, 156 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have a pick. He also had 18 yards on 2 carries. Joe Mixon, we'll talk about him in the next segment. 14 carries, 111 yards, and a touchdown. That touchdown's important. Also adding that reception for 6 yards and a receiving touchdown. The Bengals offense, with the 111 yards that Mixon carried on the ground, he contributed to 183 on the ground for them, which that's a stat you normally see with the Browns defense of this year, against one, I should say. And speaking of the Browns, Jeff Driscoll in place of Joe Flacco, 13-26, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Your thoughts on this game, sir?
We had an A.J. McCarron sighting in this game.
Yes, we did.
As someone who, was playing in the XFL last season for the St. Louis Battlehawks, I was hoping we would see him back in this reincarnated UFL league. But it doesn't look like it with him being in the NFL. And he traded in all that playing time that he had with the St. Louis Battlehawks in this game to have 3 passes completed on 4 attempts. Okay, congratulations, A.J. McCarron, for making it back to the NFL. But I liked what you were doing in the XFL, now UFL, a little bit more. Looking at this, when was also the last time that we saw Joe Flacco not benched, but sitting down to rest for a playoff run? When was the last time we saw him sitting down in the last week of the season for a playoff run? I can't remember. It's been a while. But good and happy for him. His 38-year-old veteran has got probably his last dance in the playoffs happening this time around. But good on the fact that we had that and a Jeff Driscoll sighting at that. So, but for this game, all in all, the Bengals, good on them to get this win and finish the season with a winning record. Didn't get them to the playoffs or anything, but at least it ends the season on a good note. Things to look forward to next season when Joe Burrow comes back healthy.
And you mentioned one key, 9-8. This means this is the first division, AFC North, since the 1970 merger that all teams have finished above 500. So congratulations to all of the AFC North, and congratulations to the Bengals, although this is sort of cold comfort for you. Congratulations for the Browns, who will advance to next week's wildcard round. We'll, of course, talk about that game momentarily. So the Vikings were clinging on to real slim playoff hopes, like 3%, as they went to Detroit to play against the Lions. The Lions didn't stand a chance. They got eliminated 30-20. Jared Goff, really good outing, 23 of 32, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who probably is still livid off of not being elected to the Pro Bowl, 7 receptions, 144 yards, and a touchdown. On the other side of things, Nick Mullins, 30 of 44, 396 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. He also contributed 8 yards on the ground with 2 carries. And Justin Jefferson, the guy who was injured in the middle of the season, he showed you why he was one of the best wide receivers in the game in this one. 12 receptions, 192 yards, and a touchdown. Your thoughts on the Lions beating the Vikings? And I will see if I can read.
I don't know how that happened, but anyway, I'm tired of that happening. Come on, StreamYard, get together. But when it comes to the Lions getting 12 wins, was the first time they ever did that, or the first time since the early 90s that they did it?
It's probably the first time.
Yeah, because they had 11. Okay, they had 11 wins when they did it with Barry Sanders and won the division the last time they won it 30 years ago. So, looking back on it, this is awesome that for the first time in franchise history, you got 12 wins, and you did it against a team that with Kirk Cousins was looking pretty tough to beat, and with Nick Mullins coming in, your 3rd or 4th string quarterback at this point, throwing for nearly 400 yards in this game, giving you a chance. But unfortunately, going against a Detroit Lions team, it's just very hard to pull that off when you have the other team on the other side of the ball that you're going against. Good on Lions for getting this victory. Tough way to end the year for the Vikings. But hey, even though you were clinging on to life, at least coming into this game with a 7-9 record to have a chance, it's still pretty remarkable considering the way your season, ended up midway through.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, their season ends at 7-10 after being 7-7 to be in the thick of the wild card race. But the Lions go on to 12-5, and they had their hopes still pinned on possibly getting the number 2 seed. They had one of those scenarios happen for them, but it didn't break all the way for them, and we'll touch on that later. Now, we need to throw a party for the Jets. Why? No, not just because they won against the Patriots 17-3 and their season is over. No, this is the first win the Jets have had over the Patriots since 2015. Yes, it's been that long since the Jets have beaten the Patriots. Breece Hall, who shined in the snow beautifully, 37 carries, 178 yards and a touchdown, and the Jets defense shine along with them with 7 sacks. Give Quinnen Williams credit, 2 sacks. Give Bryce Huff credit also with 2 sacks of his own. They also contributed with 2 picks of Bailey Zappi. The quarterbacks, this is hilarious. Oh my gosh. Trevor Siemian, 8 of 20 for 70 yards. Bailey Zappi, 12 of 30, 88 yards and 3 picks. I forgot. The Jets actually had 3 picks. I cheated the Jets defense. My apologies. All right. Your thoughts on this bowling shoe ugly game?
That's terrible.
Because it was. It was absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
Some of the fans out there just...
You can't handle the truth.
And, overall, when I was looking at this game, my thoughts were this.
Now, that is absurd.
This game was completely terrible. Looking at the 2 quarterback plays, like you said, it was nothing but bowling shoe ugly. Trevor Siemian, 8 of 20, 70 yards. Bailey Zappi, 12 of 30, 88 yards and 2 interceptions. I hope with these teams, Aaron Rodgers, I hope, comes back healthy and they make a few more moves to help him with protection, because they need some help on that offensive line to prevent him from getting hurt again. But also, when it comes to the Patriots, whether you make a change at head coach, you got a lot of other changes you got to worry about besides that, especially with the quarterback position. The Patriots probably had the most dramatic downfall this season. It was looking pretty bad last year in heading towards a rough situation this year potentially, but I don't think anybody would have guessed they were going to be this bad.
I could see that. I think a few fan bases will probably beg to differ, but I could see that. I could see that. But the Patriots, I don't even discuss what the record they have. They have 2 horrible quarterbacks, and then that's where it starts. For the Jets, 7-10, we'll touch on someone who said that they need to get all drama out the building and also insult a late-night talk show host to boot. Now, the NFC South was still up for grabs as the Saints and the Falcons headed into the Mercedes Superdome to play each other. This was not a contest. The Falcons got thumped and eliminated right then there on the spot by the Saints to the tune of 48-17. I'll touch on that game a little later and certain things therein. Derek Carr probably had the best performance of his year. 22-28, 264 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Saints offense gave you a good collection of backs totaling 154 rushing yards as a whole. For the losing end, Desmond Ridder, 22 of 30, 291 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. And Bijan Robinson, who didn't really do the damage on the ground, 11 carries for 28 yards. He did it through the air, 7 receptions, 103 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Your thoughts on the Saints holding on for dear life for NFC South championship hopes?
Hey, this team right here, to be able to end the season the way that they did, 48-17, and get a 9-8 victory right here, especially with all of the ups and downs this year with Derek Carr, for him to finally show up and have only 6 incompletions and nearly 300 passing yards with 4 touchdowns. I'd say it was good on him to step it up. This game was not the game that cost old Artie Smith his job, but it was definitely the one that put the icing on the cake. Good on the Saints for ending the year on a high note when it comes to their regular season, getting to a 9-8 record. And I guess good on the Falcons for getting one step closer to figuring out what their future is going to be with their head coach.
Oh, yeah, we'll touch on that on the chopping block. So kudos to the Falcons for their move. Kudos to the Saints for finishing the year 9-8. And they were praying that they would still win the NFC South. But it didn't happen. As the Buccaneers went to Charlotte, they, oh, good Lord. They got bored. They didn't play their best. In fact, there wasn't a touchdown scored when they played the Panthers. The final score is 9-0. The Panthers win the NFC South of a horrible game. Baker Mayfield, 20 of 32 for 137 yards. Bryce Young, I know he is happy his rookie NFL campaign is over. 11 of 18, 94 yards. And Chuba Hubbard, 23 carries, 83 yards, 2 receptions, 9 yards. Your thoughts as the Buccaneers clinch the number 4 seed and the NFC South?
This is one of multiple games this week that I'm glad that multiple seasons are over. But we'll definitely cover that more as we get into the rest of this show. But good on Bunker Stayfield, I guess, for winning a very dismal game. And I'm going to go back to call him Bunker here because of him bunkering it up in this game. Is he only had 20 of 32 again for 137 yards and didn't get the ball in the end zone, as their field goal kicker was the highlight of the day. Chase McLaughlin having 3 field goals to seal this thing up and kick the Buccaneers into the playoffs officially. 1 year after the whole Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II story ends, we now have a Bunker Stayfield sighting for the Buccaneers. I will call them the Buccaneers now in the playoff. So
the Buccaneers.
Good on the Buccaneers for getting there. Happy for you guys. We'll see what you guys can do here in the playoffs. Cover that more here later this episode.
And speaking of the Buccaneers, congratulations to them. For the first time in their franchise's history, they go back to back NFC South champions. So congrats to them. Congrats to Todd Bowles on winning back-to-back NFC South championships himself as head coach. And, well, it looks like life without Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. Is okay.
Get past wild card round, we'll see.
That's right. Oh, the Saints, they didn't win the NFC South, but they still were clinging on to hopes. We'll talk about those hopes later on as we get to the afternoon set of games, because the Saints still could have clinched a wild card spot. But we're not going to talk about them. We're going to the AFC and get rid of the games that really did not matter, such as the Raiders and the Broncos. They met in Vegas. I don't think it really mattered who won, although it probably was, I guess, a good pride thing for the Raiders. They beat the Broncos 27-14, and they complete the season sweep, bookending that season, bookend the 2023 season with wins against the Broncos. Aiden O'Connell, 20 of 31, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns. Zamir White, who has come on at the end of this year, 25 carries, 112 yards, a reception for 9 yards to boot. The Raiders defense put down Jarrett Stidham 5 times. They wanted to show off for intending to appear something awful. Speaking of Stidham, 20 of 34, 272 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Wonderful performance, pinching for Russell Wilson. And Brandon Johnson, 4 receptions, 88 yards. Your thoughts on both teams that finished their season 8-9, with the Raiders beating the Broncos in Las Vegas?
I think that Antonio Pierce makes a strong case that he wants to stick around as the head coach, and regardless of how much this Mark Davis-led ownership team wants to bring in Jim Harbaugh, I think that they need to strongly consider keeping Antonio Pierce, because I'm not sure if any of those other coaches on that staff would have been able to will them in leadership-wise towards affecting this team to get to 8 wins this year after the Josh McDummy situation. So when we get here to this situation right here, I really think they really need to consider that, because, even though the Broncos is a pretty decent turnaround year compared to last year, and the whole Russell Wilson debacle and all that stuff, I mean, they did lose the last couple games, and they did go on a pretty downward spiral, I guess, towards the end of the season. They had a really good turnaround in comparison to what they had last year. The Raiders, have some flashes in the pan this year to where they can make some moves. So we'll see how this offseason goes for both of these teams. But I'd have to say, at least it ended on a pretty bright note for the most part for the Raiders. And I guess we'll see what happens with this whole Russell Wilson situation and what the Broncos can bring in for the replacement.
Yeah, good analysis there. I think it looks up for the Raiders, but that's provided if Bowl Cut actually decides to not make a Rich Bisaccia 2.0 situation and actually stump their momentum and stunt their growth like he did 2 years earlier. Thank God the Chargers don't have Brandon Staley on their sideline anymore. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get up my soapbox. Oh, did I mention the Chargers? Did I mention Brandon Staley? Yeah. I'm sorry. No, Brandon Staley's not even on the sideline of the Chargers anymore. But the Chargers did host the Chiefs for their last game of the season. Unfortunately, fortunately for them, their season is over. They take with them a 13-12. What's the letter? I'm having a hard time thinking. Oh, yeah, it's the letter. There was a Blaine Gabbert sighting at SoFi Sunday. Yes, Blaine Gabbert with a bland performance, 15-30, 154 yards, and an INT. Goodness gracious. The hosts have pinned on him. The Chiefs will be going nowhere. I'm sorry. Easton Stick, who basically played out the string for the injured Justin Herbert, 28-47, 258 yards. He also carried the ball 13 times for 77 yards. And Donald Parham Jr. We're just dusting all the ones who probably need incentives. 5 receptions, 83 yards. Your thoughts on the game that made Chris Jones a richer man?
Bland Gabbert. I kind of like that. I'm going to stick with that. Bland Gabbert is his name as he comes in this game being pretty dismal and bleak when it comes to his production over there for the Kansas City Chiefs. I hope that Patrick Mahomes stays healthy in the playoffs. We do not have to see Bland Gabbert play, because the chances are they are not going to win the game. Because, yeah, you got a 13-12 victory over the Chargers, but the Chargers have been playing like dumpster Pelicans all year, which is why they were 5-11 coming into this game. Yes, they were probably the fifth dumpster Pelican in the back, the little midget one behind the one to the right. Yeah, so I had to give them the midget dumpster Pelican pick of the week when it comes to this team right here. But yeah, looking at the stats here, there's not much to get excited about. You just need to hope that Patrick Mahomes stays healthy to where we don't see Bland Gabbert again this playoff run.
Yeah. Too bad for them. Chad Henne is not coming off the bench for them.
Yeah.
Yes. 5-12 are the Chargers. Have a great offseason. I know the offseason will be better now that you're not dealing with Brandon Staley as your head coach. Now do the second step and move back to San Diego. I'm sorry. As for the Chiefs, they are now 11-6. They were locked into the number 3 seed when they played. They were just wanting to see who they were going to be playing and when. Now to the games that had some things which mattered. Some. The Philadelphia Eagles, they have started the season 10-1, but they were on a 4 out of 5 losing streak heading into the Meadowlands to play the Giants to end the season. They already beat them 2 weeks ago on Christmas night, although it was a game that they should not have struggled to win, but they did. Oh, did I mention the word struggle? Because they struggled, period, in this one, and they took it on the chin 27-10. Tyrod Taylor did a really good job in this game, although he did throw a pick. 23 of 32, 297 yards and a touchdown to go along with an interception. Wan'Dale Robinson, 5 receptions, 85 yards. And give it up to the Giants defense with Azeez Ojulari giving you 2 of their 5 sacks, 2 INTs, and 2 fumble recoveries to boot. But the Eagles offense, well, they tried. 166 passing yards and 133 rushing yards. Quez Watkins, I know this makes Cool McCain really happy. Quez Watkins, the guy he's been wanting to get rid of for 2 years. He was the top man receiving-wise, period. 8 receptions, 93 yards, and a touchdown. And the reason why I just have passing yards for the Eagles, in the second quarter, Jalen Hurts dinged his finger on his throwing hand and was out for the rest of the game. Your thoughts on the Eagles tanking the rest of their season and completing it with this cherry on Sunday with a 27-10 loss?
I hope they don't have to resort to starting Marcus Mariota next week.
Oh, Lord.
I really don't hope that they have to go that route, because this has been a very, very, very depressing thing to watch since starting 10-1. And I'm not a fan of the Eagles, which we all know, but they are a rival of the team that I do go for. But at the same time, It's still tough when you're watching all 32 teams. It's throughout a weekend, and you have to see the downfall of what they were when they were 10-1, and now to finish to this point at 11-6, absolutely depressing.
Yeah.
That you go 1-5 in your last 6 games of the season. Okay, I can't remember the last time we had that big of a drop off. I mean, I know it's happened, but in recent times, not to that not the manifest to that situation. And as soon as Jalen Hurts came out of the game and Marcus Mariota trotted in, I knew. And if you guys think that you have any hope this upcoming weekend, I think you're just going to have another. I rest my case.
No hope? Wow. We didn't even get to their game, and he says they don't have any hope next Monday night. But this loss by the Eagles basically handed the Cowboys the NFC East, the number 2 seed. Well, it handed them the NFC East. Now, for them, the Cowboys were battling to get the number 2 seed zone because all they needed to do was win and do it. And they did, 38-10 over my brother's Commanders. Dak Prescott, 31-36, 279 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an INT. The Cowboys offense, now this is what they need to do more of going forward. I'm liking the 131 rushing yard total. If they can come up with more of that, I think I would really like their chances to playoffs. I might be foreshadowing just a wee bit. CeeDee Lamb, who has been a stud this year. Congratulations on setting records for the most yards a Cowboy has ever caught in a season, and most receptions as well. 13 receptions, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Cowboys defense with Dante Fowler leading the way with a sack and a half. He led the way, and the Cowboys getting 4 sacks on the night. And Sam Howell, well, he tried. 19 of 27, 153 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Let me see if I can make my partner happy with something that the Commanders did. Oh, yeah. Well, you had Terry McLaurin getting over 1,000 yards in the game. Your thoughts on the Commanders' last home game of the 2023 season against the Cowboys?
Oh, yeah? Well, I already told them that, right? Oh, yeah, this just it. This team sucks when it comes to the Washington Commanders. You guys know it, and I know it, and we've talked about it for 8 consecutive losses now. This team is absolutely terrible.
Acknowledge me.
Oh, I'll acknowledge the fact that you suck, and you have a lot of work to do this offseason. I'm not telling any of you anything that you don't already know, and I don't want to give any more of an analysis on this team that for 8 straight weeks has taken this team really needs
Stop it. Get some help.
facts.
Oh, Lord. Oh, no. My stomach is tore up now. Now, it's unfortunate. Look, and of course, we'll talk about the Commanders' fate going forward later. But, yeah, it's unfortunate to see how the season unfolded, because it looked promising, actually, for a minute there, and the wheels completely fell off. As for the Cowboys, they sew up the number 2 seed in the NFC East, which I think it continues a streak that I find really interesting about your division. The NFC East has not had a repeat winner since the Eagles did it back in 2004 and 2005. So, again, we do not have a repeat winner in the NFC East, as last year was the Eagles, this year's the Cowboys. The Eagles could have ended it, but they decided to go on their swoon. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, they are guaranteed at least 2 home games in the playoffs. Will they get through 1? Aha. Now, the Rams had a little bit of something to play for. Of course, they wouldn't win a division, and they couldn't go past the number 5 seed, or they wouldn't even get to number 5 seed. But with a win, they could have sewn the number 6 seed. And they traveled up north to Santa Clara to meet up with the 49ers, who rested many of their starters because they already have the NFC's number 1 seed sewn, along with the NFC West. And with a Carson Wentz sighting, a touchdown that he threw, and a 2-point conversion to boot, the Rams beat the 49ers 21-20. Mr. Wentz gave you 17-24 for 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. And Sam Darnold, subbing for Brock Purdy of the 49ers, 16-26, 189 yards, a touchdown, and in the last minute of So your thoughts on 2 teams that really sort of played out the string?
I think that Sam Darnold needs to hope this 49ers team wins the Super Bowl this year. It's the only chance he's going to get getting a Super Bowl. Because the next team he goes on, if he does go on another team after this year, will not be as good as the 49ers, and he will not be playing. And if he does play, they're going to have even worse record than what they would have if he was just the backup. And Carson Wentz, good on him to actually have an opportunity to play football again after his tumultuous career for the Washington Commanders. Considering that he came in there, threw 2 touchdowns and led a team to victory, that could potentially be Carson Wentz's last opportunity to win a football game in the NFL as well. So unless they bring him back as a backup again next year to back up behind Stafford or whoever they decide to be the starting quarterback, I think that this was the last hurrah for both of these guys. So good on them to get the chance in Week 18. But, I would say good on the 49ers for resting their starters to be safe and hopefully have a pretty decent run this playoff.
Yeah. Well, we could look at it this way. Well, I think Carson Wentz probably a little bit when he got home. Probably was feeling.
I think I got my swagger back. Oh.
He's just feeling feeling it. You know, it's quite possible he may have auditioned for an NFL. Well, Carson, I tried, man. I tried.
I think if he was feeling that way, then
You should know your role and shut your mouth.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is probably curtains in terms of starting for an NFL team for Carson Wentz. Oh my gosh. Wow. Now, the Seahawks, with a win, they could eliminate the Saints and still cling on to playoff hopes, as they were hoping that the Bears could take care of business against the Packers. We'll touch on them next. But the Seahawks, they tried to give this game away, but with a last-minute touchdown and two-point conversion, they beat the Cardinals 21-20. Geno Smith threw for 189 yards on 16-28 and gave you 2 touchdowns. He also carried the ball for 28 yards on 3 carries. Kyler Murray on the other side, 22 of 30, 262 yards on the touchdown, 5 carries and 33 yards. Actually, that's very modest for him, considering he likes to run the ball. And speaking of running the ball, the Cardinals offense put 206 yards on the ground, with James Conner giving you 150 of them with a touchdown on 27 carries. He also caught for 54 yards on 4 receptions. And then Michael Wilson, 6 receptions, 95 yards. So your thoughts on a rather entertaining game that could have had some hopes for the Seahawks to advance to the postseason?
it's unfortunate for the Seahawks to end the year that way, but at least they did get the victory in the last game of the year, for one. Kyler Murray, and, comes back and helps his team get a few wins. At least he was able to get some reps in to make it not a completely wasted season for him. Right. So that was good. But they've got a lot of things they need to build on this offseason for this Cardinals team. They've got a lot of work, very similar to the Commanders and other teams we've discussed about earlier on this episode and throughout this season. So good on the Seahawks to end the year with a winning record, but they got some things to decide this offseason too. Is Geno Smith the guy? Do they want to bring Pete Carroll back? Do they want to make some big changes here and there with this team? Because 9 and 8 consecutive years is not going to get things done, or at least having records around about that way is not going to be a positive thing you can keep on building on if you're going to keep going a little bit up and a little bit back. They need to get a little bit more consistent in their production, and we'll see how things go through this offseason. But they had a slim chance. It just didn't work out for them, but at least they ended with a winning record.
Well, yeah, as he pointed out so eloquently, the Seahawks had their hopes of going to the playoffs. It's still there, but
We gotta pause that.
because 9 and 8 this year did not get them what they got them last year, because the Green Bay Packers, who were in the same situation, in the same stadium, not necessarily in the same time slot, they had a win and they were in situation for a wild card spot. This time, though, they actually won. Now, they played the Bears, and the score was 17-9 in favor of the Packers. Jordan Love, who really did account for himself pretty well. He did have a lost fumble, but a really good game. 27-32, 316 yards and 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones, who I think he has been a key contributor late going down the stretch for the Packers. 22 carries, 111 yards, 5 receptions for 30 yards. He has stabilized that offense and has given Jordan Love a lot of confidence to operate the way he should. Jaden Reed, another one of these young buck wide receivers that the Packers just seem to spit out. 4 receptions, 112 yards. And the Packers defense, not to be outdone, put Justin Fields on the turf 5 times. And speaking of Justin Fields, 11-16, 148 yards, 8 carries for 27 yards. He can at least go out feeling as though Chicago has his back, but the Bears don't have his front, side, or any other place because they're going home. Your thoughts on the Packers solidifying the number 7 seed with their 17-9 victory.
I don't think Justin Fields is as safe as what some people think he is.
I don't think so either.
Because, this, I believe, was the game to prove that point if you were Justin Fields coming in here. Because if you were able to ice the Packers, who, weren't making the playoffs anyway, but, we're looking to end the year respectfully with a winning record, which they did, in Jordan Love's first year. But, the Bears, you've already got the number 1 overall pick. And in this case, I feel like you have Justin Fields pretty much trying to audition to keep his starting quarterback job. And in this game right here, I don't feel like he proved that he deserves to be the starting quarterback. I mean, yeah, you only had 5 incompletions, but you only had thrown 16 passes, and you had 148 passing yards with no conversions into the end zone, no touchdowns, no picks, either one. So looking at this situation right here, you got the number 1 overall pick. I think they're going to be asking themselves a lot of questions this offseason, and I think that this game right here adds to those additional questions that are going to be asked in the realm of, do we really need to consider getting a new quarterback because it's just not working with Justin Fields leading the way? 7-10 is a pretty dismal record when you think of the fact that they had just traded for Montez Sweat midway through the season. And yeah, they did help the team improve their wins to loss ratio at that point, and their defense highly improved, but their offense has just been dismal to watch. A very, very tough thing to watch at times. Boring, lackluster, and we saw it in this Week 18 game.
And one too heavily dependent on Justin Fields doing all of it. And y'all, and I've heard many say, well, you don't say that about Josh Allen. He's a turnover machine. Now, we'll talk about him next, definitely. And he runs the ball too much. Drew has heard me say this in conversations away from the camera, and you all have heard me say this here. Justin Fields, to me, he needs to not run the ball as much, and he needs to learn how to beat teams in the pocket more. And if he could do that, I think he'll be in better shape. I don't think the Bears are the team that's going to actually give him the opportunity to do that in terms of the offense setting itself up right for him to do that, because I think he's going to be running for his life no matter what type of offensive line is in front of him. Sad. But congratulations to the Packers. They beat their big-time arch rival, and they go on to the playoffs. What is up, Snowman? He says, good morning. Oh, good morning, gents. Total football, baby. That's right. Our boy V like A3. He says, good morning to my Total Football Talk brothers, featuring the EP of all EPs, Cole Johnson, and the big game hunter of Dustin Pelicans worldwide, Sensei Drew Willingham. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the Ed McMahon of the Snowman in the Morning Show, Vicola. Oh, Sick Dicky says, what in the all types of red, white, and blue? And he gives us greeting of good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Diggy. And, of course, he has an ad. The belligerent shade thrown by Drew Willingham is brought to you by Slackjaw VPN, the VPN for slacking off. Slackjaw VPN, where the slacking be smooth.
I think I'm going to go out and find my old Nintendo gun for Duck Hunt to make sure I have it here. For every time Vicola says his, hunting, game hunting of the dumpster pelican. So that way I can act like I'm hunting when you read that every week.
I know. Rabbits. I'm sorry. And Sleazeball Meaty subs. Don't beat the meat. Don't toss the salad. Just enjoy the subs. Only you, Sick. And he says, Justin Fields needs to get out of Chicago. The all-line hates his guts. And that may not be the only area of the team that hates him. But moving on. Congratulations to the Packers. Now, which game was game 272? Which means that's the last game of the regular season. That would be for the AFC East Championship. The Dolphins coming into it with the lead, hosting the Bills, who have won it the last 3 years. The Dolphins, they played okay. The defense played well. The offense was just up and down. And then Josh Allen went to gift wrap this game to the Dolphins until a punt return wiped all it out. Thank the Lord. As the Bills beat the Dolphins 21-14, and they win the AFC East for the fourth consecutive year. Josh Allen, 30 of 38, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 15 carries more of 67 yards, and a lost fumble. Khalil Shakir gave you 105 yards on 6 receptions. Stephon Diggs gave you 7 receptions for 87 yards, and Dalton Kincaid pitched in for 84 yards on 7 receptions. On the losing end, Tua Tagovailoa, 17 of 27, 160 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Tyreek Hill, 7 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. And Melvin Ingram, he gave you a sack and a half. Your thoughts on both teams ending their season 11-6, but the Bills sowing down the number 2 seed in the AFC and winning the AFC East again.
Considering how the Dolphins started off this season, it's pretty sad. I mean, this is along the lines of not as bad of a drop-off as the Eagles, but pretty close. You have to look at this situation right here and just think that a team that we thought, and we both of us talking about this about a month and a half ago about how dangerous this Dolphins team was going to be, has definitely cooled their jets quite a bit coming into this playoff situation. So we'll have to see how their production is throughout this first round this upcoming weekend. We'll talk more about it, but very, very disappointing end to the year. If you are a fan of the Miami Dolphins and, the Buffalo Bills just squeak on in as, they had just fired, their offensive coordinator not too long ago and, did make some changes, I guess, throughout in their play calling to get over the hump to get to this point. But definitely good on the Bills to reach 11 wins this year. With all that being said, I cannot recall a time when or at least in my time frame, where a team has fired like an offensive coordinator type of coach and has still reached over double-digit wins in the season. Like in one game over that too. So good on the Bills for accomplishing that.
Yeah. The Dolphins, they went in 2 weeks from battling for the number 1 seed in the AFC to now being the number 6 seed. At least they're in the playoffs, so congratulations to you guys. The Bills, on the opposite end, they went when they fired Ken Dorsey, their former offensive coordinator. They went from being the 11th seed at 6-6 to now the number 2 seed at 11-6. So after that firing, they ran the table. And now the Dolphins, which they had possible 2 games in sunny South Florida, now has to go in some cold weather. Whereas the Bills, they will host 2 in their frigid Western New York digs. But I don't think the Eagles nor the Dolphins were the worst of the tailspins. And now we get to the AFC South portion of the opening drive. The Jacksonville Jaguars had it all laid in front of them. All they needed to do was beat the Tennessee Titans in Nashville, and they will bump their record to 10-7 and win the AFC South. But they decided to be this, as they have been for most of the last third of the season. They tanked horribly, 28-20, with Derrick Henry possibly having his swan song performance as a Titan, 19 carries, 153 yards, and a touchdown. That buoyed the 175-yard rushing performance for the Dogs offense, giving them another touchdown along with Henry's 1 touchdown. Ryan Tannehill, who I think is probably had played his last game in Nashville, 17-26, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I'll get to Trevor Lawrence in a minute. Calvin Ridley on the other end, 6 receptions, 106 yards and a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence, 29 of 43, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs, 3 carries for 10 yards, and just inches short of tying this game possibly at 28. Your thoughts on the Jaguars swoon and the Titans going out on a high note?
Very depressing situation for the Jacksonville Jaguars to go from where they were this season, and with all that noise about the other Josh Allen, or the Josh Allen. Yeah. Well, I think the Josh Allen showed up for another team yesterday or this weekend and got their team and willed their team in the playoffs when all the other hype was on the other Josh Allen, that I'm going to call him now, because he's not the real Josh Allen after what their dismal fall was for this team. Now, Jacksonville Jaguars, there was a lot of hype on them based on what happened last year coming into this year and righting the wrongs, and they completely nosedived their way out of the playoff contention to where, we had a game this weekend. It was pretty much the battle for the division championship. And we didn't think it was going to be that way Saturday night. It was going to be just a battle to get in with a little bit of help from others. Then the Jags take a complete dump on this road game and give the division an away for one, but also another playoff spot that the Steelers eventually capitalized on. So we'll talk about that more throughout this episode, but looking at this, definitely, considering what Doug Peterson and his hype was coming into this situation right here, it's going to be some questions that need to be answered this offseason for Jacksonville, because if Dougie P comes back next year and has this happen again, he's out of here. If he's not out of here yet.
Yeah. It's unfortunate for the Jaguars. I mean, they had the total opposite happen to them this year than last. They started off slow in 2022 and came on like game busters. Basically stole the AFC South from the Titans the last game of the season, and then come back from a 27-0 deficit in the wildcard round to beat the Chargers, who, and I believe that was the game that Brandon Staley was fired. And actually had a pretty good showing in the divisional round against the Chiefs, although they took it on the chin 27-17. But they started off 8-3, and then they only win one game the rest of the way, and that game was a shutout win at home against the Panthers. But they went basically after that, or besides that, they went 0 for the rest of the season after starting at 8-3. Oh, and speaking of which, that 8th win came against one of the two teams we'll be talking about at some point. Oh yeah, that ends opening. No, it doesn't. Let's get to the game of the week, shall we? And to me, this had all the stakes to it. Now, Jacksonville's loss eliminated them from the playoffs. It also put the Steelers and the Bills in the playoffs automatically. But it also opened the door. Of course, this game took place earlier, took place the night before, but this opened the door for the Texans and the Colts. One of those two teams, if they win this game and they had what happened Sunday afternoon, they would not just be a playoff team, they would be the AFC South champion. Well, the Colts came in favored, and it was a good nip-and-tuck game, but they took it on the chin thanks to a drop pass on 4th and 1 with a minute to go on the Texans 15. Oh, Tyler Goodson, you got to be more careful. As the Texans surprised everybody, myself included, in beating the Colts 23-19, and not just taking the playoff spot that was on the line, but the AFC South Championship. CJ Stroud, great performance, 20-26, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also gave you 20 yards on 3 carries on a suspect running performance from the team, only getting 60 yards. Nico Collins, who was also a stud this game, gave you 9 receptions, 195 yards, and a touchdown. There was 2 catches he had that was absolutely phenomenal. On the other side, Jonathan Taylor, let me give a round of applause for him. He came in and he was a beast in this game. 30 carries, 188 yards, a touchdown, and a curious decision to take him out the game when he was the catalyst for their last drive. Also gave you 2 receptions, 8 yards, and then Gardner Minshew. And I'm so glad that my partner is going to say your nickname for the last time this year. 13 of 24, 141 yards. Your thoughts on the Texans claiming the AFC South championship, beating the Colts Saturday night?
You know, in this game right here where Cole Johnson and his CJ Stroud-led Texans come into town against Uncle Rico to take this divisional championship. Yeah, first, we thought that Uncle Rico was going to have the opportunity to win this game, okay? And looking back at the beginning of this year, if you were to tell us that Cole and I would be talking about how impactful this game would be at the end of the year towards both of these teams potentially making the playoffs, we would have said you were smoking crack. Okay?
Exactly.
Because we did not have any inclination that this Houston Texans team was going to improve to the manner of what they were. 3 to 4 years from now, yes. Okay. That was what we were saying and what many other people were saying as well.
Right.
We were all wrong. Okay.
Yes.
We were all completely wrong in the manner of when Anthony Richardson went down. And even though I was one saying that it may give them a glimmer of hope with Uncle Rico because of what he's done in the past, unfortunately, he just didn't have quite what it took to get them over the hump because there's other pieces that need to be addressed at other positions around the quarterback position. But there is hope there that if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy and they can bring in some additional pieces this offseason and potentially in 2025 as well, this team could very well be dangerous. The Texans are dangerous now, which, I at least give them a chance to win their first playoff game this upcoming weekend. They have a chance, okay? And we'll talk about that more here shortly. But I think they're going to have to get a few more pieces during this offseason and potentially next offseason if they're going to advance further than the wild card round. So, and they have a lot on their plate this upcoming weekend. Even though they have a chance, you're going against one of the best defenses in the league. And we'll talk about that more here in a little bit. But for this particular game right here in Week 18, good on the Texans, good on the CJ Stroud, rookie coming in with a rookie head coach as well. Right. Surrounded by other veterans they've brought in around him. Very good on this team to pick up the victory here and to do the things that they did. Very happy for you and your team there, Cole Johnson. I hope that you guys can definitely make some noise in the playoffs. We'll just have to see once we get to that point here later in the show.
Yes. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Point of reference. So coming into the season, the Colts had a 17% chance of making the playoffs. The Texans had a 50% chance. So for the two teams to actually have the spotlight game Saturday night, to have a shot at the playoffs and win in your end scenario, nobody predicted either team to get to that point. So congrats to the Colts. I could throw shade as a fan of the Texans to the Colts, but I can't, and I'm not going to. You all battled hard to get to that point, and you were only 15 yards and a drop pass away from possibly doing it. Thank you, Kiemi Fairbairn, for missing the extra point, but I'm sorry. However, congratulations to the Texans. We'll talk about them later as they clinch the 4th seed in the AFC and the American Football Conference Southern Division Championship. That completes Opening Drive. We will be back right after this.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Break.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. New Kids from the Block, New Edition,
dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason Whitlock.
Ready to hang with some fellas who know football? Let's ride. LC Muscles 28.
I think they're the most overrated defense in the league.
Steel Sermon.
We did not trail for a single second.
Tiny Tim.
McCarthy is a bonehead.
A Pistol 90.
I'm going with my boys. Fins up, baby.
Get ready for the Four Horsemen of Pick'ems. Every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on YouTube. Poppy J.
You got the option to cry for the government. You got the option to protest. You got the option to keep buying. But this is also an option.
Wise El Jefe.
We're the first tech geeks. We're the first gamers. We're the first everything. Everything. Like Gen X's, we are the ones.
BS3 Network proudly presents the crew from the New York boroughs who never wants that smoke. Nah, they want that fire. Bobby J and Wise El Jefe, Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Check your local listings for your viewing and listening pleasure.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk with Drew Willingham. I am Cole Johnson. Glad that you are here. Oh, sick. Shh. Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits. And our brother BS3, as my man Ivan says, the man that puts the BS in BS3. How you doing, Ben? I hope your morning's going well, sir. And congratulations to your Cowboys, number 2 seed. Hopefully you all can take care of business against the Lions this Sunday. We'll talk about that a little later. But for now, let us get to the Gridiron Scoop. All right, let's see. You had Jadeveon Clowney getting $750,000 on a sack. You had Joe Mixon getting $750,000 on a touchdown. You had Chris Jones getting $1.25 million off of a sack himself. And you had other opportunities for many different players to get incentives on week 18 and the teams being invested in having them get those incentives. My question to you, sir, how much of a role do incentives play in overall team morale?
It kind of goes both ways when I think about it. It's like, if you don't meet your incentives, you don't get, the extra bonus pay. But if you're not meeting those incentives, that means that the overall team isn't producing, because you have to have the rest of the team behind your back in order to achieve those incentives. It's like, say, if you're a quarterback and your part of your incentives is having 30 touchdowns, but you have scrub wide receivers catching the ball that aren't catching the ball, aren't doing their job, and you finish the year with 29 touchdowns. It's not going to be great morale in the locker room when you are the head honcho quarterback and you're coming into week 18 and you're like 6 touchdowns away from 30 and you only get 5 touchdowns in that last week. I mean, you know what I'm saying. But then the shoe's on the other foot too. If you do accomplish it, but then you got other people around you on the same side of the ball, like say your quarterback hits his incentives, but your wide receiver doesn't hit their incentives, and then they still go to the playoffs, okay, but they're not getting this money because they didn't hit their incentives. Maybe that's going to hurt morale going into the playoffs. I don't know. I mean, it could go either way when it comes to this incentives question.
That is a really good point. Yeah. how does it happen if it goes the opposite way, where your team might go to the playoffs, but a person didn't get their incentives? Will will it mean that they actually will play their hearts out, having the thought in their minds, I could have been such amount richer, but you was playing? Yeah, that's a good assessment. A good assessment. But congratulations to you guys, though, that did land your incentives. It does make the game more fun, actually seeing you all hit whatever you all had for a contract stipulation. And I love seeing it. I love seeing it. So congratulations to you all. The Panthers, the Falcons, the Commanders, the Chargers, and the Raiders. Which that last one makes me ill. Why? Not because of the team and not because of the teams that are listed. No. Those are the teams that are considered to be in the running for the possible Jim Harbaugh exile from Michigan to one of those 5 NFL programs. The question is, what does he want? That will be the question on the minds of many throughout college football and NFL. As the Michigan head coach, the current one, the one who yesterday won the first national championship for Michigan in 26 years, he'll be weighing his option after winning said game in Houston. Shout out H-Tan. Over the Huskies last night. Now, the allure of a possible return, mind you, he was the coach of the 49ers. It's evident for a coach who has interviewed with teams each of the last 2 years, and given that 5 NFL teams already have vacancies, those 5 NFL teams I've mentioned have vacancies, it seems like a certainty that Harbaugh will be at least interested and piqued in some of those things. Now, with a 89-25 record in Michigan and a 44-19-1 run with the 49ers, the 60-year-old man has shown that he can build a group into a top contender in short order, making him attractive for any outfit seeking an expedited turnaround. My question to you about Mr. Harbaugh and his fate, sir, is now that he's won said national championship, will he go to the NFL again?
I mean, I think the chances of him doing it have increased. He's either going to do one of 2 things here. He's either going to try to drive up his contract rate for the Michigan team and get paid, higher, get paid better by them because of what he's brought to them, not only as a player for them back in the day, but then returning to his alma mater and finally getting the national championship. So he's either going to drive the price up there, or it was also a move to drive the price up in the NFL as well, to where he gets paid more than what he was getting paid when he was the 49ers head coach. Some enticing places along these head coaching openings for this would be, of course, Las Vegas. You got LA. And then, of course, there's a lot of noise coming from Washington to potentially try to make a move to bring him in there. But I don't see Jim Harbaugh going to the Washington Commanders. Like, I would love to have him there. I feel like he would be a point of great leadership for this team. But at the same time, I don't think that it would be a move that he would necessarily want to make. I would much rather see, if he can't go there, I'd much rather see Mike Tomlin go there. But again, his wife has been very vocal from what I've heard behind the scenes that she wants to go to LA. I mean, whose wife doesn't want to go to LA?
Right.
When you think about that. But right here, if Jim Harbaugh is going to come back to the NFL as a head coach, it's going to happen this offseason. He's 60 years old. He's not going to keep pushing it back even more. This is going to tell us right now, if he goes back to the Michigan, if he goes back to college, he's going to definitely stay with Michigan because he wants to bring more greatness to that team. And he did that. He accomplished that this season, and they got the victory last night. I was very happy to see him do that. But I think it would be even cooler if he comes back to the NFL and does something that he couldn't do as a player and lead a team to a Super Bowl as the head coach.
Well, lead a team to a Super Bowl championship. He did lead those 49ers, the 2012 variety, to a Super Bowl bid. They just came a safety short.
Well, of course, but to actually hoist the trophy.
Yeah, that you're right. That he hasn't done as a player nor as a coach. You're correct. But he has hoisted one trophy as a coach, And that was that lovely crystal ball. Or I'm sorry, that cylindrical gold thing that's called a national championship. I missed that crystal ball. Poor things. All right, now where will Bill Belichick go? Now, after a tumultuous season filled with setbacks, unfulfilled expectations, and a whole host of drama, Bill Belichick is still very much in charge of what he wants to do, being a New England Patriots head coach and currently still general manager. After posting the 4-13 finish, that was the worst of his 29 seasons as NFL head coach. The 71-year-old man intimated that a willingness to be flexible about his job duties should Patriots owner Robert Kraft decide to bring him back is in the offing. Now, that includes letting someone else handle the personnel decisions. Now, he decided to have a press conference yesterday, and he said, quote, "I'm for whatever collectively we decide as an organization is the best thing to help our football team." I'm sorry, let me do this right. For whatever collectively we decide that as an organization is the best thing to help our football team. I'm under contract. I'm going to do what I always do, which is every day I come in, work as hard as I can to help the team in whatever way I can. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. We're on to the offseason. Close quote. All right, my question to you, and it's so, God, it's so draining to do Bill Belichick. What would the Patriots ultimately do with Belichick?
Well, you had that impersonation so down that I almost took a nap like I did yesterday when I saw what was going on. So that was spot on. But for that, I'll have to give you this.
Acknowledge me.
That was great. Now,
Thank you,
looking
sir.
at this, you're welcome. Now, looking at this situation right here, regardless of what happens this offseason, there's going to be a move that's made in New England. Okay.
Yeah.
He may be retained as the head coach because he's been there for 24 seasons. Okay.
Right.
He might want to give him one more chance for a 25th season because, besides Tom Landry and I think Don Shula, there's not many coaches that have been there for over 25 seasons or more. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I off the top of my head, those are the only two coaches that I can think off the top of my head in the modern era of the NFL. Okay.
Yeah.
Where we've had them being for the same franchise for 25 years or more. And I think, Bob Kraft owns, he has a lot of admiration for Belichick. I know they've butted heads,
He does.
But out of the 24 years that he's been there so far, he's delivered them 6 championships and has been to several Super Bowls that they've lost again on top of that. So it's like almost half the time that they've been there, they've been in the Super Bowl or in the hunt for the Super Bowl. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Belichick is retained next year as the head coach, but is not the GM. Like he's going to lose something. He's not going to lose the head coaching position, but then be the GM. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. So if anything, you're going to take away a position. Either way, this man's going to lose a position he's had with this team since he came there as the head coach. He's been the GM and the head coach the entire time he's been there. So I feel like he's going to lose the GM position and potentially keep the head coaching position. Or let me mute you there, Cole. When it comes to this situation right here, I think that he's going to be retained as the head coach potentially and lose the GM position unless a team like Washington, there's been noise about, makes a trade for him. But unless you trade your second overall pick this offseason for this, historical great coach, I don't see the Commanders making that move, and I don't want them to make that move either. So we'll see what happens when it comes to old Billy B.
You actually said it. I think the GM role is what he's going to lose, but I really believe he's going to still stick on as the head coach. To probably the chagrin of many people. And well, I mean, he's earned the right. And yeah, and you make a really good point about Kraft. Yeah, he and Belichick have butted heads, but there's a lot of respect for both. And yeah, And I think the luster of, you can have a silver anniversary celebration of this guy. I'm thinking that's probably what's going to happen. So, Hoodie, congrats on a horrible season, but also congrats on a wonderful tenure. And hopefully for you it continues, but hopefully the Patriots improve, because this team the last few years has been bad. It's just been horrible watching your product, though, these last few months. Whoo, man.
Total Football Talk.
Oh, yeah. Where are my dogs at? It is time to award the Dog of the Week, or the Grand Champ. And for his Grand Champ for Week 18 of the 2023 NFL season, Drew, the floor is yours. Unfortunately, the sound is not yours, though.
It is back. I was trying to do... Never mind. Anyway, when it comes to this situation right here, as much as it pains me to pick this person as the champ, I have to do it right here. You know, when you look back at Week 18 last year and getting embarrassed to the point of what he did get embarrassed to, and to have that chance to right the wrong again this year, you know, which is very rare unless it's a divisional rival opponent. They set this up 2 years in a row. But in Week 18, you had Dallas coming to Washington, and somebody got smacked in the mouth last year, and that being Dakota Rain Prescott, and especially the playoff hopes last year. That definitely was not the case this year. Comes into FedEx Field and throws for 279 yards, 4 touchdowns, does have the one lone pick. But the big thing that really sticks out to me is he only had 5 incompletions on 36 passes, completing 31 of those 36. So looking at the fact that they led this team, that he led this team to a 38-10 victory, I have to give it to Dakota Rain Prescott for my Dog of the Week.
Wow. I'm proud of you actually not showing bias, because I know that had to be sickening for you to award a Cowboy as that. So kudos to you for that.
My stomach hurts.
Mine hurts for you. Let me see. Jared Goff, good week, but no. Breece Hall, you were a beast. Nah. Quentin Williams, yeah, you were a beast too, but nah. I'm having a hard time deciding who I want to do this. But, I haven't really thought about it. Tyrod Taylor, look, as hard luck as you've been, man, but no, I can't really give that to you either. Look, Azeez Ojulari, they've been waiting for you to do what you did Sunday, dog. But no. When can't really pick wins can't pick Prescott because my partner did it. Jordan Love, hey, that was a great performance in the time when you all needed it, man. That was great. Josh Allen, you balled out when you actually decided to not be a turnover machine. So I gotta give you credit. You were clutch when they needed you, but man. All right, let me see. Yeah, all of these things I've had to debate as to who I wanted. And there's many choices, but I got one. The Houston Texans organization, you all are dogs, and you all get it. You all are my grand champs. Every last one of you, except for Cal McNair. Every last one of you. That's right. Will Anderson, Nico Collins, CJ Stroud, D'Amico Ryans, Bob Slowick, even Kyrie Fairbairn for missing the point after when they were up 23-17. Heck, I'll even give it to Hannah McClain because she's actually showing that she has love. The Houston Texans organization and the fans, you all are my dogs of this week. Congratulations. That's right. H-Time stand up. Oh, yeah, baby. You all get set. D. Willie Bucks time.
Coming up next, the featured attractions. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated, creating content magic in the real world.
Little right here. Now look at the inside of these cakes. Now, when you bite into it, just as I demonstrated while you were talking at the beginning of your discussion right there, I could taste the drugs inside of this cake, Sick. I could taste the addiction within the cream filling of this cake right here, to where they not only us with that cake right there, but they made an ice cream out of it. They made an ice cream out of it. A 1-pint Christmas tree cake ice cream. Look at that little just smile up there. Look, she is up to no good on there. Look at that. Look at that smile on there, Sick. She knows that she got you. Got him is what's in her mind right now.
Acknowledge me.
Look at that little smile right there. She's up to no good.
D. Willie in the evening. Thursdays at 11:15 p.m. Eastern, 10:15 p.m. Central. Exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $ D Willie 87. Go ahead, hit him up on the Cash App, and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie Bucks?
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
If you're looking for a sports program that gives you the flavor.
Washington Commanders? Really?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
That pulls no punches.
Thuggish act by a thuggish actor.
That gives you some humor.
Praise everything LeBron does and never criticize it.
If you want a show that gives you good times, then this is that show. BS3 Network proudly presents.
I am Cole Johnson, and welcome to
Cole Sports with a Z. Every Friday on Patreon, and every Saturday on YouTube, Spreaker, and all other outlets.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk with Drew Willingham. I am Cole Johnson, and Victor has this question to ask you. What kind of conversations do you and Sick have, Drew? Ones that have sound, obviously.
What do you mean, Vic a lot? What kind of conversations do me and Sick have? Like, what kind of conversations do you have with Snowman? What kind of conversations do you have with Cole Johnson? Because I'm not going to sit up here and take. In fact,
let me talk to you.
Where's this even coming from? You have now taken this show.
Why, Why?
Vicola.
You should know your role and shut your mouth.
I rest my case.
Oh my gosh.
I'll hear from you on Tuesdays anyway.
The show was flowing smooth, and then all of a sudden that had to happen. Nick, it's good to see you, brother. Actually, well, yeah, you may be late, but we still think you're right on time, my man. And actually, you are right on time for this. This is the part of the show, if you are just joining us now, where we feature the biggest of the games for the upcoming week. And now that we are in the playoffs, What did the playoffs? I'm sorry. Love you, Jim Moore. We're now focused on the best of the best. And now we're in the wild card round. We will begin with the game that will start the wild card weekend. The Cleveland Browns, who come in at 11-6 with a stalwart defense and a drinking from the fountain of youth, Joe Flacco at quarterback, going up against the Texans, who they are young, wet behind their ears, and breath smelling like Similac from the offensive line, well, most offensive line, to the defensive line, to the secondary, to C.J. Stroud, to even D'Amico Ryans. They come in at 10-7. They are the AFC South champs. The Browns are favored by 2.5, and kickoff is on Saturday, 4:30 p.m. in Houston. Now, going with the Browns, we saw with many different teams, they just simply put you in a spot where they just make things difficult for you to execute against them. But I just find the going tough for them, especially since they lost Nick Chubb early in the season. Can the Browns' running game match Flacco's and the defense's productivity?
Well, if we were going to sit here and analyze that, I don't think that the Browns would be in the playoffs if that was that big of a problem. You know, they got 11 wins for a reason, and their defense has helped carry them to this point.
Right.
You know, I think the bigger question is going to be is, will CJ Stroud's, rookie status be able to compete against this defense that the Browns have? Because the lack of the running game really hasn't affected Joe Flacco when you look and you watch these games thoroughly. You know, he had the week off this past week, but the man at 38 years old is still slinging the rock like he's 10 years younger and has a chance to lead this team to at least AFC Championship. So, I think that this question right here, when it comes to the lack of the running game and matching Flacco's, matching the productivity, I don't think that it's going to be that big of a problem as people are thinking, because if it was, they wouldn't be here in the first place.
I agree with that. I think I give credit to the head coach of the team, Kevin Stefanski. He wants to run as soon as he gets off the bus, but he found that he did patchwork stuff with Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt as his running backs. And then he picks up Joe Flacco, decides that, okay, well, let's use his arm and his intelligence. And I think that has really compensated for the lackluster performance by that offense early in the season that basically wasted really good defensive performances early in the season by the Browns. But I agree with you. Now that you have the productivity from Flacco, it eases the burden on the defense, and it basically doesn't really highlight as bad the lack of a running game. And I agree with you there. On the Texans side, so they should be happy. They didn't think they would be here. This is the first time they're in the playoffs in 4 years. And not only are they in the playoffs, they actually get to host a playoff game to boot. But the problem that I see is when they played them the last time, and yes, I know C.J. Stroud was on concussion protocol when they played them the last time, which was Christmas Eve. The Texans just couldn't execute a thing offensively against that wonderful, suffocating defense. So how can the Texans successfully execute anything against them?
They're going to have a hard time. They are going. I think this is going to be one of C.J. Stroud's toughest matches that he's had this season. That's a good question right there, because this kid is definitely calm under pressure. He definitely has proven that the time at Ohio State, he's definitely gained some poise. I mean, he does attribute part of that to his faith, but when you put all that into the pile there, I don't know if that's going to be enough to withstand the force of what this Browns defense is going to be putting at him. Looking at this, both of these teams are here for a reason. But I think the offense of the Houston Texans willed them a little bit more in this case to get to this point, as to where the Browns side, the defense willed them a little bit more. But you also have a smart, journeyman quarterback at this point, a legend in some aspects to what some people are saying about his time in Baltimore. And what he's done to this point, especially, he's done more in the last 6 weeks than Deshaun Watson did in the first 6 weeks of this season for this team. And where they're at here, they got a dangerous defense, but they don't have a bad offense either when you have Joe Flacco in the mix. Looking at both sides of the ball here, I think there's a little bit more that's going to get exposed on the lack of experience, the lack of NFL experience for the Texans than what is on the Browns side when we see this matchup this weekend.
Yeah, and no question, the Browns, they have the experience advantage because you have a guy who has been in the head coaching slot and it's actually had playoff success against, yes, the rookie head coach who has had playoff success. It was just as a defensive coordinator. This is the first time for him as a head coach getting to this point. Same thing, of course, with CJ Stroud as a QB, as just opposed to Joe Flacco, who is not only a Super Bowl champion, but a Super Bowl MVP. So who do you have in this game between the Browns and the Texans?
Unfortunately, I have to go with the Browns, my man. I don't want to. I've been riding this Texans train with you for a while now throughout several weeks and hoping they get to this point, but I did not want their first game to be against this Browns team because you've heard me say for several weeks too that I feel like this Browns team has a really good chance to get to the AFC Championship, and there's some that's dubbing them as a pretty decent chance to go to the Super Bowl. And I've even said that depending on how the seeding goes, the Browns could and would surprise people if they made it to the Super Bowl. I don't think that they're going to beat the 49ers, but if they get to that point, but that's for a story for another day. For this particular game right here, I feel like it's going to be a pretty good matchup. Overall, I feel like that the Browns defense is going to be what sends them over the edge here in winning this game, but it's not going to be by much. I think that if I were to actually give a prediction for this score, it would have to be 31-27 Browns.
That's sound analysis. That is sound analysis. Even if I was a rose-colored glasses wearing Texans fan, I couldn't really argue against that. I couldn't even call you a hater because that just is sound stuff. You got an experienced team, or at least a little more experienced team in certain places versus an inexperienced team. And now I know how it feels to be in this position and either have played for a team or rooted for a team for a good while, and you actually have to be objective. Because sometimes it's hard for you to be objective. And I gotta say, it's gonna be hard for me to be objective here too. I just think it's going to last another week, but I do say this. The best team that has a chance to unseat the Ravens is the Browns. I do agree with you there. But for some reason, I just don't see the Browns coming out of this game. For whatever reason, I just don't. And I got the Texans, but it's barely. I'm talking like maybe like 24-23, 26-24, like a game of that type of nature. But I see the Texans advancing, and Browns are going to give them a tough battle. I can see them advancing, but I don't think they will. Oh, and Mick says, so when did the Commanders start their playoffs?
What?
You're a Seahawks fan.
What?
You're a Seahawks fan.
What?
And you want to sit up here and talk smack about my Commanders.
What?
Congratulations for picking the Browns.
What?
But you're picking the Seahawks to actually make the playoffs absolutely sucks.
What?
So when you look back on this situation right here.
What?
We got a
Stop it. Get some help.
Let me talk to you. All right?
You can't handle the truth.
There it is.
The train rolling off the tracks is exactly what I was thinking that whole minute. So, oh man, that was just too funny. But yeah, all of you join in with Mick. Who do you all think as well? Who will be winning all of these 6 games we're going to be covering here?
Well, don't join this. Whatever you do, don't join the circle with Mick and whatever he's smoking right now. Because look at what he says right here.
Oh Lord, yes, I saw that.
And then he wants to try to get a game comparison. Okay, well,
at least the Seahawks won more games to the Commanders.
Ain't nobody care. Who cares? Ain't nobody care.
Facts, because if you win more games, congratulations, but you're still in the same boat as the Commanders on this Tuesday on the outside looking in.
Yeah, that pretty much was what I was going to say. I'm like, well, both have the same fate because both are enjoying their off season on the same day. So, who are not enjoying that off season today? Hopefully, one of them won't be enjoying it starting Saturday night. That'd be the Chiefs at 11-6, number 3 seed in the AFC West champs. They are hosting the reluctant number 6 seeded Miami Dolphins, also at 11-6. They had a chance to win the AFC East to be number 2 seed, but and now they go to Arrowhead, where they said it's probably going to be between 5 and 10 degrees at night. Kickoff is at 8 p.m. Saturday night. The Dolphins. This is what I've noticed about them. They want to make games a track meet. I actually compared them to like the Showtime Lakers. They want to run you to run you to actually have you be run ragged. They want to spread the in this case the field, not necessarily the floor. They want to spread the field. They want to operate in space, and they want to just simply make it a track meet. But I think when teams can be physical against them, as the Bills proved Sunday, that gives them problems. And it's not that the Dolphins defensively can't be physical. It's that offensively, I think they can. So can the Dolphins turn up the physicality?
Week 10, November 5th, when these two teams faced off.
Yeah,
they've already played each other once this year.
Right.
It was a close game, but Kansas City came into this game 7-1. The Dolphins were 6-2. This was a key matchup for that potential week, and we talked about it then.
Right.
And Tua couldn't even throw for 200 yards. Neither quarterback actually threw for 200 yards.
Neither one of them did. Right.
And their running game was suspect as well because neither one of their running backs had over 85 yards.
Correct.
So, looking at this situation right here, and your question at hand right here is, can the Dolphins turn up the physicality? I don't know. I really don't think that they can because there hasn't been much improvement when it comes to their physical stature since this particular game in week 10. And this is 9 weeks later.
Right.
So, and they've gotten worse since that moment too. So I don't have any high hopes for this team turning up the physicality in this game. I think a lot of luck's going to have to go on the side of the Dolphins because they're a little banged up in some areas. Tyreek Hill isn't 100% either, and he hasn't been 100% since he's come back to the field. So since he's kind of had the tales of woes with the injury core, their production has gone down for one. And that's a big alarming stat when this team is primarily offense-based. And this Kansas City Chiefs team has got the best defense that they've had in a while, and especially the best they've had in the Patrick Mahomes era, to where they're not having to go for it every single time on 4th down anymore. That's what it felt like. Every single time it was 4th and 2, 4th and 3, they were going for it. Now they're punting them, pinning them inside the 20, and counting on the defense to turn up their physicality on the offense. Right. So I don't think that the Dolphins are going to be able to really turn it up or really advance from their current status against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and in that November 5th game in Germany, the final score was 21-14 in favor of the Chiefs. And who knew that actually ended up deciding who was going to host this game. But both teams basically played to a stalemate, and it took a that I think came from the hands of Tyreek Hill that was returned for a touchdown, and that was the difference. Speaking of that Chiefs defense, I agree with you. To me, I think that is the unit that has gotten the Chiefs this far in 2023. Now, yes, I know you have Mahomes, you have Kelsey, and you can do things with those two. And you had pockets of good contributions, like from Rashee Rice a couple of games and Isaiah Pacheco in a couple of games. But that offense seems to play in lulls. I mean, we saw that in Christmas Day against the Raiders. We saw that even in Germany against the Dolphins. And we have seen it in other stretches during this year. What can the Chiefs offense do to not play in such a lull?
Ask Taylor Swift to stay home.
Oh gosh, really?
I don't know. I don't think maybe that might not be the exact way that it needs to go, but when you look at this overall production of this offense, it has definitely taken a step back this season. It's not her fault, of course, but looking at the fact that their big star tight end, this could be the beginning of the end for him. Because his production has gone down severely, and I mean severely, over this season. Of course, he didn't play in this past week, but the week before when he played the Raiders, he only had 5 receptions, 44 yards, which is not, stellar numbers for Kelsey. Is average for other people in the league, but still, not great for him. And, that's been a big weapon, a big weapon of Mahomes. And he was a big weapon of Alex Smith's before Mahomes. They've relied on Kelsey quite a bit. And if Kelsey does come back next year, I feel like in the offseason, they're going to need to find, maybe not a tight end that's better than him, but one that'll complement him, and may need to design this offense for next year to where they have a 2 tight end set up to where they can not have to rely on him as much, to where he doesn't have the risk of getting as banged up as he has been. Because he's been banged up this year. He's been banged up at other points in his career too, but has been able to kind of battle through it. Now, with being a little bit older, I think he's starting to see that he's not as much Superman as he once was when it comes to his ability to play out there on the football field through injury. So I think that's affecting this offense a little bit too. Of course, you don't have the big deep threat like you did with Tyreek Hill, but it really hasn't mattered as much because Rashee Rice has kind of been the second coming of Tyreek Hill in some aspects, because he's been, Tyreek Hill was 1, but Rashee Rice was 2 for the majority of the NFL season in receiving. Right. So putting that in perspective, I don't think that not having Tyreek Hill has really affected them so much. Their running game has been a little bit suspect, where they can afford to adjust that a little bit more. But I think that the inconsistencies at the tight end position has been what's been affecting this team throughout different points of the year, and has have them playing kind of mediocre, to where your description in this statement, this question is. But what can the Chiefs do to pretty much not play that way? Is they need to get better production out of their tight end, whether it's Noah Gray or Travis Kelsey, one of the two. And that's what sets the tone for this team and the momentum and everything else, like you just said, throughout the whole entire game. So if they cannot get things going at that position, I think there's going to be a small chance of this winning this game. And we'll get into that here in a second.
You hit the nail on the head. I think for the Chiefs offense, it starts with the tight end. And the thing is, even when they had Hill, it still started with the tight end. It still started with Travis Kelsey getting his touches.
That's what's up the big plays.
Getting something set up, like you said, and it set up the big plays down the stretch, down the field, later on in the game. So for years, yes, I agree with you. For years, the Chiefs' offense has been predicated on the tight end being the spark plug. So I totally agree with you there. I will also add, I want to see more Isaiah Pacheco because I think they need to start thinking of different ways to just get that pressure off of Mahomes because it's now to the point where it's like, okay, we can bracket cover Kelsey, we can cross our fingers and take our chances with any wide receiver trying to catch a ball, and then we can pin our ears back and get after number 15. They need Pacheco to carry the rock, and if he can do that, I think that will help in the overall production of that offense. The Chiefs are favored by 3.5. Of course, they're at home. And they rarely ever lose at home and rarely ever lose in the playoffs at home. They do, but they rarely do. So who do you have between the Chiefs and the Dolphins Saturday night?
You know, if the Dolphins didn't take as big of a dive as they did this year, and this was in Miami, I would give it to the Dolphins. But considering that the Chiefs are the defending Super Bowl champions, this is a home game for them.
Right.
I don't know what else they'd be able to do beyond this week, but I feel like in this particular week, they do have the opportunity to win this game. Considering the downfall that this Dolphins team has been on, I got to give it to the Chiefs at the edge here. I think they win this game 28-24.
I'm with you. I'm not really all that impressed with the Dolphins. When I saw them Sunday night, I just saw there's just something missing. And it was great when they played the lesser thans, but now you're playing teams that are supposedly your level and above. And when that happens, as we saw Sunday night, they just come up short and they don't bring the goods. And I see the same thing happening in chilly, frigid Arrowhead Saturday night. The Chiefs take it, I believe, and I think we'll be surprised as to how ineffective the Dolphins will look. Now, the marquee matchup actually will be Sunday night when the Detroit Lions host their very first ever playoff game at Ford Field. I know the building has been up for a couple of years, but this is the first time a home playoff game is going to be played on Ford Field, as they, in 12-5, and their 3.5-point favorite selves host the Los Angeles Rams at 10-7. Kickoff is at 8:15 on Sunday night. And of course, the center of attraction would be one Matthew Stafford. Now, for those who don't know, he played many years, I think it was 9, maybe 10, as the Lions quarterback. And they felt as though, well, they're not competing. They traded him to a contender. They got Jared Goff as a return. And Stafford 2 years ago ended up winning a Super Bowl for the Rams. How will Detroit welcome Matthew Stafford?
To answer your question, he was with the Detroit Lions for 12 seasons.
12. Thank you.
From 2009 to 2020. I think that they're going to give him one hero's welcome.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, to the no.
All right, people.
Let me talk to you.
Yeah, they might have some video package that plays when he comes in. Because,
Matthew, you're a quarterback.
Now, because trading away Matthew Stafford.
We love you, number 9.
Holy shnikes. But when it comes to this situation here, like they might have some video package there, but you know, Matthew Stafford was a big part of when they did have the ups in Detroit during his tenure. However, the trading away of him to LA and the pieces that they got in return is part of why they are where they're at right now with these 12 wins this year. You know, it was still good for Matthew Stafford that he was traded, and then that next year he got a Super Bowl. He finally got the ring that he desired. I wish he would have got it with Calvin Johnson and Megatron, and that they would have been able to do what they've been doing this year with Detroit maybe 10 years ago. But unfortunately, it didn't work that way. You know, I think that he'll be welcomed in, you know, fairly relatively well. But when it comes to this game right here, I think that it's going to be a bittersweet trip to Detroit for Matthew Stafford.
That's a good word because I think similar. I think similar. I can poke fun at how Lions fan would greet a returning Matthew Stafford for the first time as a Ram. But yeah, I think bittersweet is a very good word. Now, for the Lions, now we have a fan base that they have only had one playoff victory to celebrate in 66 years. And now they get a chance to embrace this team that they love, and well, heck, the whole country. We love the head coach of the team, Dan Campbell. And there's many pieces of this team that we love too. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. You should have kept them, Bears. And then you got the centerpiece on the defensive end with Aiden Hutchinson. You have really good pieces on this team. The one thing that I won't say it's red, I'll say it's orange. The only orange flag I have for this team is that Mr. Campbell loves to be aggressive just a wee bit too much. So do the Lions need to be as aggressive as they normally have been?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They need to be coming out there biting off kneecaps and all sorts of stuff like they have been. Man Campbell leading the charge out there, doing what he does best, and, getting that goatee hair sticking up to the left and getting ready to rock and roll. He is something else. I believe that if they are not as aggressive, Matthew Stafford is a Super Bowl champion and has the experience as a veteran, has been around since 2009 now, 15-year veteran now in the league. Got to give him a chance to you don't want to give him a chance, as I would say, to creep up on you and get this win. Right. I mean, the Rams were looking suspect at different points of the year, but they got to 10 wins this season for a reason. They're led by a really good coach in Sean McVay, and they still have Matthew Stafford, who is on the twilight of his career, but still has some flashes in the pan left to give you if you give him the opportunity to do so. You need to come out here hitting hard if you're the Lions.
Yeah. And I think they need to me, I think they also need to corral Kyron Williams and make the Rams be one-dimensional on offense. And if they could do that, I love their chances even more. So who you have in the game, the Saturday night tilt between the Lions and the visiting Rams?
A long overdue victory in the playoffs for the Lions. I think that it's time that the Lions move on to the divisional round. I don't want to say too much more after that until after we see what happens in Super Wild Card Weekend. But I feel like in this moment, against their team, I wouldn't say it'd be like revenge or anything, but it would be an awesome way to write the story if you traded away your franchise quarterback. Again, you're playing the team that you traded him to and the team that you got your current quarterback from. Okay. Right. This is a few years later, and you still have both quarterbacks. There's situations where you trade someone and receive someone, and one of those two teams doesn't have that player a few years later. Right. This is a situation where we had a trade of two quarterbacks, and a few years later, one of them has already won a Super Bowl. And now you're in the playoffs in the first round, and one of these two teams is going to lose, and the other team will still have an opportunity to still play for a Super Bowl the following week. It's a pretty remarkable trade. There's not many trades I could think of where we can say a few years later it was best for both teams because one team already has a Super Bowl championship, and the other team still has an opportunity to play for it with a quarterback that was written off a long time ago. I think it's going to be a close game, so close that I haven't even mentally prepared a score for it, but I think that the Lions take this game to kind of just not say the F-bomb to you to the other team, but to say, like, we not only took that trade that we made with you guys, but we've also built around that as the years gone on. Look at us now.
Actually, I think this will be the closest contested game of the weekend, and I believe the Lions are going to win it, and I think they will have their second playoff victory since 1957. But this is not going to come easy for them, and it's going to be hard earned, and I'm going to appreciate them. And I'm rooting for a certain divisional round matchup, and I hope they win there too. I don't think you have to guess as to what matchup I'm rooting for the divisional round. Yeah, we saw it just a few weeks ago. We'll be back.
Next, the chopping block and snowflake of the week. This is Total Football Talk. Join Ryan McCarthy.
I became a Jets fan because Kermit the Frog was my favorite Muppet because he was green, and the Jets wore green. That's how I became a Jets fan.
And Dustin Henry.
ESPN is cashing all in on let's pay a few personalities and we'll just kind of fill in the gaps.
As they walk you through all of the world of sports from their perspective.
The Albany Empire, it's a literal circus.
No credentials required. Where, Ryan, say the tag.
Where you don't need a press pass to talk sports.
Every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. On YouTube and where you can find all podcasts. This is a BS3 Network presentation.
I want to do a TED Talk, but I don't have anything to talk about yet. I'm getting there.
Life is for the living. We're not here that long.
You can learn anything you want to learn without any money spent.
What do I really enjoy? What do I really want out of life?
I am your host, WIZE.
Are you in a life holding pattern? Well, this is for you. Welcome to the Stuck in My Mind podcast. Live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central. Football, and more football, you say? Well, tune in to Total Football Talk. Join your hosts, Drew Willingham.
You were playing like a dumpster Pelican quarterback.
And Cole Johnson.
It sets up a possible play action. Did you hear that, Dak Prescott?
As they take you through all the paces, both on the field and in the boardroom, of Total Football Talk. Every Tuesday at
9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central.
Exclusively on the Sertoba Media and the Comey Media Incorporated YouTube channel.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk with the returning Drew Willingham. I am Cole Johnson, and this has actually been a pretty good show thus far, and I think we're going to turn it up a notch. Oh, you had something to say, sir?
Yes, I have a question, Cole Johnson.
The question is,
has Karen had her TED Talk yet?
Has Karen had her TED Talk yet?
Yes. Because every time I hear the Wise El Jefe commercial for the Stuck in My Mind, and she's sitting up there, well, at least I don't know if she's sitting or standing or laying down, because all I hear is a voice. And she's on there and she says, I want to have a TED Talk, but I don't know what I want to talk about. Did you have a TED Talk yet? Because every single time I hear this commercial, I wonder if you've just had a TED Talk yet.
Oh, my goodness.
I think I got my swagger back. Oh.
So you're saying Karen is not going to say one of these days soon?
Let me talk to you.
Well, if she does it, then please, when it comes to that commercial, when it comes to her,
Delete.
You gotta know what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh!
When you come onto the show, you have to know what you're talking about. If not,
delete.
Acknowledge me.
dogs. Something I did not think I was ever going to say or hear on this show ever. Oh my
Welcome
gosh.
to Tuesdays with D. Willie.
Yes. Well, speaking of a Karen and a TED talker, Aaron Rodgers. Now, he and the Jets. Oh, you love that segue, huh?
Yeah.
Well, he and the Jets could officially look ahead to next season after that wonderful victory in Foxborough. And Rodgers, of course, the chatty Cathy, met up with the media yesterday, and he admitted the following, which I don't know why he would admit it, but this is him because he loves to run his mouth. Quote, "It's going to be a long off season for all of us. We're all going to be on the hot seat next year." Close quote. Now, he also went on to say that all distractions need to be eliminated from the building before next year. My question to you, sir, is if the Jets need to avoid distractions, why doesn't Aaron Rodgers retire?
I think that if they were looking to avoid distractions, they wouldn't have traded for him.
Isn't that the truth?
Because, you already knew going into this, when you traded for him, that he already has his Tuesday segment on the Pat McAfee show. He's already going to be running his mouth.
Always.
Regardless of the situation with Jimmy Kimmel or not, he already has that platform each and every Tuesday during the NFL season. Right before the season and throughout the season. This year was the first time we saw him throughout the entirety of the NFL season, and he wasn't playing. So, putting all that in perspective and thinking about that, I don't think it's time for Aaron Rodgers to retire. He still has some things that he wants to prove, and that's why he worked so hard to potentially come back this year if the Jets were still in playoff contention. So, I think the situation and the circumstances are unfortunate when it comes to the distractions, yet he has set them up himself and, put himself in this situation. So you either need to figure out how you're going to get yourself out of it, or you do need to retire. But I think he'll figure his way out of it, and he'll be back next season.
That ayahuasca sipping, Darkness Retreat having clueless space cadet is nothing but a distraction. I'm sorry. Let me stop. Let me stop before I decide to take this show. Pot caught in the kettle black habit.
Who's giving them the business?
Well, we didn't have to wait long for Black Monday to begin, because right after midnight yesterday, the Atlanta Falcons called Arthur Smith and said, "Receive your pink slip right now." It was just a few hours after the team was routed in the finale of their third consecutive 7-10 season. Now, Atlanta, of course, was entering with a slim hope of getting the AFC South title, but it wasn't going to happen for them. Falcons owner Arthur Smith had this to say about Mr. Smith and his tenure as a Falcons head coach. Quote, "Decisions like this are never easy and they never feel good. We have profound respect for Coach Smith and appreciate all the hard work and dedication he has put into the Falcons over the last 3 years. He has been a part of building a good culture in our football team, but the results on the field have not met our expectations. After significant thought and reflection, we have determined the best way forward for our team is new leadership in the head coaching position." Close quote. My question to you is, who should now be the Falcons head coach to replace Arthur Smith?
Someone with a beard or just clean shaven?
Oh gosh.
Not with
the porn stash. Goodness.
Not with that duster that he had below his lip. Whatever, that thing would do that thing would be more productive when your floor is in a Swiffer wet jet. That's how productive that duster is. Okay.
A duster.
So if he's never going to coach again, you can at least hire him for Merry Maids. Okay. Because he has all the tools necessary already equipped on him to take care of your house's needs. Now, when it comes to the head coaching position, just don't hire Josh McDummy. Just don't.
Oh, no, please don't.
Do not hire him, Matt Patricia, and anybody else who just flat out sucks, okay? Because then a year from now, you're going to be saying this to that person.
You're fired.
Just like, unfortunately, an Arthur had to do to another Arthur during that midnight call.
You're fired.
Nobody wants to hear that, and especially not at midnight. That was pretty cold. But, hey, the sooner you get it over with, I'm all for it. You know, whether it's Cole Johnson or anybody else, when it comes to the situation, you know, and especially when you're leading a team, right? Arthur Smith being led by another Arthur and Arthur Blank. If you have a situation where you have to run an organization and you've got somebody who isn't doing their job properly, and it's holding the entirety of the project in that team back to where there's no hope of advancement, like there's no hope of any type of improvement, and you've done the best you could. And in this case, you had 3 years and probably a year too long, probably should have been out of there last year. But, you know, you had 3 years of opportunities, several conversations, meetings, things that you could do to potentially improve a little bit from the previous. Now, part of that doesn't help is you did never really establish a good quarterback. You know, that's part of your problem right there, since Matt Ryan's been gone. If you had an actual quarterback, then things would be pretty good, would be a lot better, and you may still be there. But that's part of the management team. When you don't put your aces in places and you don't bring in the right personnel, it's going to affect the overall morale of the team. And again, if you are the one that's in charge of bringing in the personnel, drafting them, free agents, and then putting them in the positions on the roster to succeed, then when they're not succeeding, and then the way that they lost this past weekend, you have no choice to get the situation out of there, the negativity out of there. And the sooner you do it, the better. The sooner you cut a problem that's a lingering problem, like a hemorrhoid continuously giving you a hard time, it's time to cut that unit on out of there, heal on up, and get on to the next thing. And that's what they did.
Yeah, that was a nice ripping of the Band-Aid, I'll admit. And yes, and hopefully for Arthur Smith, I'm never gonna coach again. Guilty niggas got no chance.
All right, George Michael.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, my generation's not supposed to know what the father that is, but I dated a girl back in high school where, like, her mom was in love with George Michael. It was like every Saturday you go over there and got George Michael playing. The Careless Whisper was playing. It's like, come on, dude. Like every Saturday, it's like every Saturday 2:05. Yeah, that relationship didn't last too long. I couldn't stand that song. After like the 5th Saturday, like, yeah, I don't know, man.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's a Deep Will and Evening episode.
I probably should, because that's probably why she's divorced. This is back in like 2000. That was like 20 some years ago, like 20 years ago. So I don't even know if she's still around anymore. I hope so. I don't want to wish any ill on anybody, but that would drive anybody. That would definitely drive anybody crazy.
Yeah. Now, speaking of things that drive people crazy, I know the 2023 Commander season has driven you crazy. As Mick has pointed out earlier, he says, yes, both the Seahawks and the Commanders are dumpster fires. At least the Seahawks still have a head coach. Riverboat Ron got fired.
Oh, look who's grasping at straws now, Mick.
You can't handle the truth.
So, yes, Riverboat Ron or Ron Rivera, he received his pink slip not on midnight Monday, but it was on yesterday morning, after his team's 4-13 season, his fourth in Landover. Now, they entered the 2023 campaign with heightened expectations, but lost the final 8 games of the season, as you heard in the opening drive segment. Thank you, Drew. Rivera's ouster followed new principal owner Josh Harris's first season controlling the organization. The coach never posted a winning record in his 4 seasons in Washington. He did have a playoff appearance, though, so you have that. And an NFC championship to boot. Of course, it was a 7-9 record in 2020, but it still counts as a divisional championship. Now, Harris had this to say about the departing Rivera. Quote, Ron helped navigate this organization through some challenging times. He is a good man and thoughtful leader who has positively contributed to this organization and the NFL. Close quote. Now, as for Ron, he said, quote, as for Washington, it wasn't easy, and there is a lot more to be done. But I believe we began to change the culture of this organization in meaningful ways. And on a personal note, it has been one of the greatest honors of my career to serve this franchise and those who cheered on every week. Close quote. Now, with the question I'll ask of, will the Commanders turn to Eric Bieniemy to be their next head coach? I will now give you the floor.
Let me talk to you.
I don't think so. I really don't. I was talking about this yesterday on Commander's Gridiron Report, what could be most likely the season finale, depending on if anything else happens the rest of this week, which I broke that down towards the end of the episode. If some big news comes out the next week, then I'll bring it on. If not, it's going to be a show that's like on every now and then throughout the off season, because it's not like this show right here where we have a whole lot to unload with the NFL. Plus, we got the UFL starting up shortly after that, and this and so forth. So this will continue to revolve around. When it comes to, Commander's Gridiron Report and this team, the biggest news happened yesterday. That is most likely going to be the biggest news until free agency and the draft and all that comes up. And what I said towards the end of that show was, Eric Bieniemy's having issues butting heads with some of the player personnel. You got Logan Thomas, you got old Cosme, the guard, coming out there and saying the same thing. And, it's just 2 of the players on the 53-man roster, but still, when you have players go in public about the coaching style, and the fact that this organization only had 4 wins this year and went to 8 straight losses, and considering the fact that one of those games, Sam Howell couldn't even throw over 52 yards. I like Sam Howell, and I don't want anything to affect him this offseason. I would approve of him coming back as a starting quarterback next year, and they put a lot more pieces into that offensive line and invest around this team a little bit more than the quarterback, because, for the past few seasons, at least, especially since Kirk Cousins left, about 5-6 years ago, they've been having a revolving door of quarterbacks every single season, it feels like. And the longest stretch we've had of a tenured quarterback at the position, I believe, has been this past season, when you had Sam Howell starting week 18 last year against the Cowboys, and he was primarily the starter throughout the majority of this year. And except for that one moment where Jacoby Brissett was dubbed as a starter, he was, then deemed too unhealthy to play the following week. But I think it was more so along the lines of he wanted Sam to continue to get reps and to improve from it. We saw some flashes in the pan, and I think that Eric Bieniemy would be better off being retained by the team as the offensive coordinator / assistant head coach, and they give him a chance to see what he can do with a true leader at the helm of the head coaching position. But I think with all the turmoil it has been surrounded by this team. They finally got the head coach out of there. They wanted to have a clean slate with having a new one. And I think it's going to happen like that around the entirety of the coaching personnel on that team on both sides of the ball, on offense, defense, and could even be special teams. This team could have a complete overhaul, especially when you think they just brought in the former Warriors GM who helped build them to 4 NBA championships. Now, I get it. This is a completely different sport. This is football and basketball in comparison. They're 2 totally different sports. But the one thing that you cannot deny someone when it comes to running a business is the ability to run a business. Weighing in the checks and balances, the pros and cons, thinking about everything inside the box and outside of it is what's best for that organization. That is the type of mentality that the Washington Commanders need right now, because they have not had that mentality in probably 40 years or so since Jack Kent was the owner. And the last, 8-9 years that he was the owner, he was on the decline. Health-wise, was getting older. Yeah, they did win another Super Bowl during that last final stretch of him in the 90s. In the early 90s, they won a Super Bowl, but then, he passes away by the mid-90s, about 97, I think, and then they had to sell the team like 2 years later. So this team right here is definitely been on a downward spiral for, ever since they won the Super Bowl 32 years ago, okay, and has not fully recovered. And I think that the moves they made yesterday, not only just getting rid of Ron Rivera, his contract was coming to his end. He had a 4-year deal. They decided to keep him on because you'd just be paying extra money and wasting money this past season had you cut him. Okay. Now you go into this offseason with $80 million in cap room. $80 million. It's a lot of money in cap room to have to start for this season, for one. For two, you also have the second overall draft pick, and you have several other draft picks to give you a great deal of capital this offseason. I really hope you don't waste any of it by trading for the hoodie to come in there to be your head coach. I think that would be terrible. And as much as I like Eric Bieniemy, and I was praising the man this past offseason, saying that if it didn't work out with Riverboat Ron, you could let him walk and elevate Eric Bieniemy, except for you only had 4 wins this past season. And I don't think that justifies enough of a reason that you had success with Kansas City with a team that was well built and put together with other great coaching surrounding you to help elevate you to make you better, to now come to the Washington Commanders and you had all this hype around you. If you were as good as as the claims were, the offense would have been much better than what it was. Now, I know you're not out there playing the offensive guard and tackle and center position, and they have to make a lot more upgrades to that. But I think if they make those true upgrades this offseason, now that you've got an ownership group that has a full season under their belt, kind of understands the management side of football a little bit better, I think they're going to make some pretty good moves this offseason. And if you retain Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator, bring in a really good defensive coordinator and somebody who can spearhead this team as the head coach and lead the charge, I think this team has a pretty good chance of turning things around. Not as quick as the Texans did, but have a pretty good chance to turn it around.
Mick says, yes, Ron, you did help. You definitely did help, sir. But, Ron?
You're fired.
Get out.
He did get out. He got out yesterday. This is trollish comment have to do with anything, Mick. Like, come on.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I agree with you. I don't see Bieniemy being the guy that they're going to put as head coach, which is unfortunate for him. It's unfortunate for him, but that's how I see it too. But Ron, you have a Super Bowl appearance as a Panther head coach, and you had a NFC East championship. To your credit as a Commanders head coach, good luck to you in whatever you do, sir. As for the Commanders, things are looking up, but let's see who they decide to run the helm for next year. That'll be interesting.
Total Football Talk.
is the new year, but it still applies. It's time to award the Snowflake of the Week for Week 18 of the NFL 2023 season. And for his Snowflake, I cede the floor to Drew.
I think I'm going to select an entire team as the Snowflake of the Week.
Okay.
And as much as I want to give it to the previous team we were talking about, just based on what I saw this year, there was a team that was just a little bit worse than them this entire season. They had 2 more losses, they had two less wins, and don't even have their number 1 overall pick for this next season.
That is correct.
And that is the Carolina Panthers. You are all...
That's terrible.
Like, you are all terrible when it comes to that. You took this 15 times. When you look at my dumpster Pelicans here, they are the ones to the top far right. Actually, let's bring that up again. We got to loop this unit real quick because when it comes to the dumpster Pelican status, you look at the one in the top right, the one with the longest beak. That is the Carolina Panthers right there. If you are a member of the Carolina Panthers, Adam Thielen, I don't care who you are, you should be ashamed to be on that team. I mean, look at their colors. That blue Walmart bag is off the front. That even should give you enough of an indication that this team is absolutely destined for dumpster Pelican status. So, when I think about the situation at large here, when I'm talking about a Snowflake of the Week, I have to give it to an entire team that's been terrible to watch all year long, and that being the Carolina Panthers.
Oh my gosh. You stole exactly what I was going to say. I was actually going to say, I think I see a Carolina Panthers jersey in that pile. Oh my gosh. Good one. So they were up 41-17. The head coach called for a victory formation. They decided, I should say one person decided not to do it, and then they decided to do a handoff. They scored a touchdown, and the final score ended up being 48-17. Yes, I'm looking at you, one eat the W's own Jameis Winston. All right. There might be many who would say, well, in that instance where the head coach of the team, the Saints, Dennis Allen, he sent the play to Winston to execute, which was victory formation. Because, I mean, heck, they were up by multiple touchdowns. What was the point in scoring another? But the rationale was, well, we're doing this because we wanted to have somebody score a touchdown because he hasn't all year long. Too bad, so sad. For those who have never been on a football team, there is a pecking order. Yes, the quarterback runs everything offense-wise. However, he has to acquiesce at times, and in this case, he definitely has to acquiesce to the offense coordinator and definitely the head coach, who, of course, it's one and the same with Dennis Allen. If you were to buck, as Mr. Winston did, what the head coach does, it sets a bad precedent because it makes the players think, well, why do we have this head coach here in the first place? We can do what we want. The head coach is not going to punish us or reprimand us or hold us accountable, which I could put it in Dennis Allen's direction, but Winston is a pro. I take that back. He is a pro whack. Son, you have played this sport too long and you have been in the NFL too long for you to pull sophomoric BS, childish games such as audibling to score a touchdown so that you can curry favor with another player. Meanwhile, usurping what your head coach has told you to do. You are not the head, you are not the number one, you're not the starting quarterback of the team. You are the backup quarterback. And now we know you're a backup quarterback for a reason. And it could be because of skill. I don't think it's because of skill. I think it's just simply because you, sir, do not follow directions. And since you can't be trusted by an offensive coordinator or head coach in the NFL, to the clipboard you will be for the rest of your career until you decide to eat your W's in retirement. Come on, man. You got to be better than that.
The 2-minute drill is next. This is Total Football Talk. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast. Every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets. Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. You want your commanders to be repped right? Well, D. Willie is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Monday at 3:05 p.m. Eastern, 2:05 p.m. Central. Exclusively on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool.
Where my soldiers, right side, commanders. Where my soldiers, left side.
Join the transporter to Hades.
Your butt and gut becomes one.
Join the reformer of hooker whores.
This is my daughter, Placenta Booty Johnson.
Join the bronze god.
Whenever you are in distress, take off your baseball cap and throw it in the air.
Join your very own superhero of broadcasting, Chris Bass.
So whatever color crayon they get, they palm it and do 2 circles, and that translates to, I can be the black people.
As she takes you through the week's paces in Baseline. Live every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central, Pacific time zone people, just stay asleep when this is on live and just catch the recording. Oh, I'm sorry. Exclusively on the Chris Bass YouTube channel.
And now we're in the home stretch of Total Football Talk with Drew Willingham. I am Cole Johnson. And, Lord. Well, Mick says that you should take the Commander's head coaching job. And he also said that he would give his Snowflake of the Year award to the Eagles since they lost to them. Actually, Mick, the final score was 27-10. But, yes, that I know would make my man Wise happy. But I think what will make us all happy is to get to here. Time for the 2-minute drill as we do the best of the rest and talk about what is on tap for the rest of Wild Card Weekend. And we start Sunday, 1 p.m. in Orchard Park, New York, as the surprising number 2 seeded Buffalo Bills at 11-6. They host the equally surprising 7 seeded Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-7. The Bills are favored by a touchdown and a field goal. Who do you have in this game, sir?
I think it's the Bills are definitely going to take this game against the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers barely squeaked in. I mean, so do the Bills too. But, based on what the Bills have accomplished in recent times, as far as over the past few seasons, the Steelers have been on the decline more so. And especially with the way the turmoil was to start the season out, even though the Bills fired their offensive coordinator, it's going to be a tough game for both sides, but I think the Bills will edge out on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the Bills, and both have the Jaguars to thank because they actually got a chance to be in the playoffs thanks to their loss in Nashville. So yes, but I do take the Bills over the Steelers. Good run by the Steelers. I just don't see them overcoming what the Bills can offer. Sunday at 4:30 p.m. That's the kickoff time between the 12-5 Cowboys and the 9-8 Packers. Of course, we're going to see a whole horde of storied or packages about the storied history between the Packers and the Cowboys, the Ice Bowl, the 93 game, the 94 game, the 1995 NFC Championship game, and the game where Aaron Rodgers in 2016 threw a great pass to set up a game-winning field goal. The most storied playoff rivalry, the Packers and the Cowboys. Ugh. Sorry. Cowboys are favored by 7.5. Who do you have in this game, sir?
Unfortunately, I have to go with the Cowboys. I mean, it's still pretty remarkable that the Green Bay Packers got here. Especially with the 9-8 record and first season without Aaron Rodgers, and the past 2 seasons with Aaron Rodgers, it wasn't, great to where they were making playoff runs. So for them to do this the first year with Jordan Love, I think it was an accomplishment in itself, but the story's going to end this weekend when they play the Cowboys.
I agree. As much as I want to see the Packers advance, I don't think they will. I don't think they have enough of the Cowboys. And speaking of which, Mick says that he believes that the Cowboys will take it all. This is for you, Mick.
Ain't nobody calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, are you still involved? Delete! 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 Delete!
You make me ill for that. And the final wildcard game, Monday night kickoff, 8:15. The Eagles favored by 3 on the road at 11-6, which boggles my mind. They go to Tampa to play the Buccaneers. They won the AFC South at 9-8. Who do you have in this game, sir?
If this matchup was on our plate a month ago, I would say the Eagles would win decisively. But they're too banged up right now, and especially not knowing the condition that Jalen Hurts is in this moment, considering that he had to come out of the game. If they got to rely on Marcus Mariota, they're screwed. So putting all this to perspective, if I were to take a wild guess on Tuesday, not knowing that much because, we still have 4 good days, 5 good days or whatnot in between this game right here. Well, actually, technically, since this is Mondays, we got 6. We got almost 6 full days until this game. So anything can happen. But I think them having this game on Monday is the best case scenario for this Philadelphia Eagles team. It gives them a little bit more time to rest up. I think that the Eagles win this game, but I think that this prediction of them winning by a field goal is accurate, because that's literally what's going to have to save them is their special teams in this matter if they are going to get over the hump against Bunker Stayfield, because the inconsistencies on the Buccaneers at times this year, they've looked really off, even though we're in a situation right now where the Eagles are very off compared to what they were doing the first 11 games of the season. I think that you still have to give them a little bit of a chance, considering they got as far as they did last year, and they still have a lot of talented pieces on this team. It just depends on what shape they're in by the time we get to that game Monday night.
Yeah. Well, these two teams did meet up. Actually, I think it was a Monday night game that they met up in Tampa, where the Eagles, in one of their rare good performances, beat the Buccaneers by 2 touchdowns. 25-11 was the final score. It's not going to be that. And I do agree with you. I think the Eagles will advance. Oh, that's going to be interesting. Because if that's the case, that means they probably will be headed to Santa Clara. That's going to be rough. So that concludes this 2-minute drill.
Total football talk.
As long as it's one.
But it doesn't conclude this show, as now we are in the post game. This is when we give our final take on the week that was, which this week was week 18 of the 2023 NFL season. And for his final thoughts or on post game, I see the floor to Drew. Hopefully I can seed it to him with sound.
Some sound. Yeah, there it is. So we've had some noise issues throughout the show that I've had to either mute myself or mute Cole, because coming through the headset, I just can't stand hearing noise. So if that's the case, I'm going to mute myself in that case. And I've had to do that a few times throughout the show. So coming into the statement, I apologize if I've been muted a few times, but it's just been one of those mornings. So when we get to this situation right here, looking back on this season, I'm glad the season's over for many teams. I said the same thing earlier for the Commanders, but I'm going to say it right now for the Panthers, the Vikings, the Falcons, the Titans. I mean, there's several teams that I'm glad that next Tuesday when we are here, we will not have to talk about. Unless there's like some major news that comes out about a firing or a trade, or well, probably not a trade, but some type of move within the organization. Okay. You know, when it comes to changes, they're good. And I think we're going to see a bunch of changes this off season when it comes to these NFL teams and the teams that we have had to see that are not on a good pace right now. And that being, of course, the Panthers, the Commanders, get the Bears. Oh my, when it comes to all this stuff. And, luckily we don't have to say the Lions in there, because the Lions got 12 wins this year and are definitely doing pretty good. So it looks like, we got some more trollish comments over here by Mick when it comes to his statements on the Commanders, but we will acknowledge them at another time. As right now, it is time for the closing thoughts. And the closing thoughts that I have for this season are the teams that are in the playoffs deserve to be in the playoffs at this point. Even though the Eagles have fallen off the way that they have for what they did the first 11 weeks of the season, going 10-1, I have to give them their credit where it's due. And even though they haven't done much since those first 11 games of the season, they still did enough to where they are here and embarrassingly as a wild card team and not hosting it at home. So there's a lot of things you could say there. There's a lot of promise for some of these teams that we see in this weekend's matchups, but we still have the two best teams in the entire NFL being the Ravens and the 49ers that we have to look forward to in the following week. Something that we will hopefully talk about and touch up on next week when we are back covering the recap of Super Wildcard Weekend and the preview for the divisional round here for the 2023 season, as we are now in January of 2024. This has definitely been it's been an interesting season, to say the least, for many teams that we have been watching throughout this year. I just hope that the ones that had the issues that we've been covering throughout the previous 18 episodes work on what they need to during this offseason, to where we don't have to sit up here and talk about them as much for that team, and can hopefully recycle those statements for another team in a different light. But here are the closing thoughts for this 2023 season, or 2023 regular season, I should say, is, again, the teams that deserve to be in the playoffs are there. And it must sting a little bit for old Ayahuasca, Mr. Ayahuasca, Aaron Rodgers, to sit on the outside and watch his former team that he asked to be traded from make it to the playoffs. And he's sitting on the sidelines, still recovering from an injury, and his team was nowhere near the playoffs when it comes to him and his team in the New York Jets. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to that situation. There's a lot more things that need to be taken care of throughout the overall offseason for this team. But we will hopefully get to that next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern time on these platforms and cover that at that time then. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much all I have for the end of this episode. This is 2 hours and 40 minutes so far of the best greatness that we could provide for you on this network show. And to Comey Media and Sertova Media, thank you all who've been watching this show from the beginning throughout the end, throughout this episode. As Cole's going to take his way on through the closing thoughts and put a bow on this thing and tidy this thing on up. And you have no sound.
See, look at that. Look at me. Look at God. I have to address the trolls, and there have been a few.
Mick.
Oh, Lord. Well, in this variety, I'm addressing those who now I belong to a couple of Texans chats in Facebook, and there are those who are who masquerade as Texans fans, but they're Cowboys fans, want to always stick it to Texas fans because they just love the fact that the team in the home city in which they live is doing horrible. They get that jollies off by saying how bad they are. And there was a guy who was one of those trolls who had the nerve to have a Texans logo with the bull crying and the horns pointed down. And he says, "Oh, this is going to be how you all look at the end of Saturday night's game." And he also said another thing in terms of, you all, and he used another word that I can't use here. You all are acting soft in how your team has been. You all have these lowered expectations of your team. I said to him, 4 wins in 2020, 3 wins in 2021, 3 wins in 2022. No one predicted them to, and at the time the Texans had 9 wins. No one will predict them to have this type of season this year. No one. Not a fan of the team, not a detractor of the team, not an analyst, not even the organization. Nobody predicted them to have 9 and now 10 wins on the season. And of course, they went on. And when I said, when I said that, he says, "Well, it sounds like a loser." I said, "I really don't care what you call me. The thing is, I have wonderful expectations for my squad, but I'm proud of what they've done. I'm proud of their journey. Now, do I not want them to go further? Yes, but I'm proud of their journey. And I'd be disappointed if they lose, but I'm proud of their journey. And nothing, not even your trolling comments could take it away." So, of course, when the Texans won, I decided to type something of this nature. Quote, "Oh, so this is the sad look that the Texans have now." And below it, I had the GIF of Ray Liotta in Goodfellas wearing a white suit, laughing and cackling his butt off. Because that is how we all are as Texas fans, to those who love to troll. Eat it. Suck it. 2023 AFC South champions. You better love it and you better accept it. And the Texans could wet the bed the rest of the way. I don't care. But you now have to take notice of a team that now nationally people are saying this squad, if they can build it right, they're going to be a contender from this point forth. Yeah. Now, do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year? No. Do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl next year? Maybe, but more likely not. They still have more pieces to build. But what do I believe? I believe they're headed in the right direction, and they're headed in the direction that I haven't been able to feel good about since J.J. Watt was tearing up the league in sacks, which we're talking 2012, 13, 14, and 15. If you're a fan of a team that is doing well, celebrate it, because I've been where my brother has been in having a season like they had this year, the previous 3, because I've had to deal with a team that looked like, okay, well, they're painting one picture, but the product on the field is saying otherwise. I hope you use this season, as for the Texans, for those like the Commanders fans, like Panthers fans, like Falcons fans. I hope you can use this as motivation that this could be you come January 2025. Because that's the energy that I want to extend to all of you. The 2023 champs, the Houston Texans, from worst to first, that also could be you. And I want to celebrate in that, whoever the team is.
As long as it's one. Oh, it's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
All right, sir. Do you have any other comments before we let our Total Football Talk audience go, sir?
For those of you who are tuning in, who tried to check us out on the PSF today, I apologize. Apparently, there's either some type of issue going on within the update of the app or on my version of it or something. We're going to try to figure out what's going on with that today because we couldn't get that going this morning. And that's the first time out of all of our episodes since we've been under contract with them that we haven't been able to go live with that. So I feel pretty bad. Thank you for those of you who came in and tuned in with us. As we started a little bit later than normal today, but we are here and we've gone through this week 18 recap, the preview of the Super Wildcard weekend. I finally don't have to talk about the Commanders anymore on this show for a while. Hopefully, please don't write anything into the show for a while there, Cole. My suggestions, please, unless there's some major news. I need a break from that dumpster Pelican team. I really, for my sanity, my health, everything about my life, I cannot talk about that team anymore for right now, which is why I put that show on ice yesterday because, it's like I said towards the end of that show yesterday. I bet you half the content creators out there who are in my shoes with that type of show would have quit halfway through the season. They would not have carried on throughout the entirety of the season. There's people that we know that have a good team and they can't even have a show for the entirety of the season. Okay. My team was 4-13 and I was there every single week, even throughout the holidays, every single week. I just can't do it anymore. This for right now. I need a break. So, guys, for those of you who missed my, as Sick likes to say, belligerent outtakes on Commander's Gridiron Report, where I get all hyped up, I can't for my health anymore. I will, but I need you guys to make some moves this offseason so we can have a healthy balance. If like you're 8-9 next year, then only 9 of the games I got to give you a hard time, not 13. There was even times during the 4 wins that you had, I was still giving you a hard time. It felt like every single week this year. So that's why I love this show right here. Is it's well balanced as we get to talk about all the teams. You don't have to put so much. It's like there's no emotion into it. With the Commanders, there's emotion because I've been dealing with this for 32 years since the last time they won a Super Bowl. I was 5 years old when they last won a Super Bowl. And now look at me now. I'm talking about the Commanders. I don't want to, but I am. Look at this situation right here. Total Football Talk, 19 episodes of good times. Looking forward to episode 20 next week. And definitely looking forward to when the UFL kicks off March 30th, as we will have even more football to discuss with you guys. It'll be here before you know it. At the flick of the finger, we'll have to see what happens when we get to that point. But right now, we still have plenty of NFL to talk about for quite some time.
That is correct. And believe me, I'm not going to act like I'm brand new. I've had to deal with not wanting to talk about the Texans as soon as the NFL season was over, the previous 3. So I totally know how you feel. And yes, we do know of content creators who have had wonderful teams And when they got on a losing streak, decided to scalp and scrap but I digress.
I do have one more thing though before
Shoot.
we get too far, because I want to do this one last time since we are still talking about the regular season. All right. This just in, the Commanders still suck.
Stop it. Get some help.
Oh my gosh. You are incorrigible. If you want to reach Drew on social media homes, you can go to Surtober_media on Instagram, Surtober_media on X, or _Surtobia on TikTok, and of course at Surtober Media on YouTube. And if you want to reach yours truly, you can go to flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. That is flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. And we thank you for joining us this regular season. Hopefully the playoffs is going to be even more entertaining and more enthralling than these first 19 episodes have been, and it's been great. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, and hitting the notification bell so you can catch all content that emanates from the Surtoma Media YouTube channel or the Coleman Media Incorporated YouTube channel. For Drew Willingham, I am Cole Johnson, here to say, imparting as we always do, in life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And always remember, you got to play until the whistle blows.
And as always, stay safe out here in these streets.
And these streams. So long, everybody. The playoffs are here.